What up? What up? What up? It's so good to be back. So good to be back. Gang, gang. Sport brand, dude. Bro. I can't wait to talk. Don't say anything in chat. Yet, I already was working on something. And it's crazy. It's crazy. We have a guest. Who's behind door number 1? What's up, brother? Oh, I don't have audio.
Yeah, hang on one second.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you beautifully now.
Okay, good.
Matthew Tellhart, what up? Hey, Dugan, Matthew Tellhart's the guy that's making those sweet-ass blades.
Sweet blades. Sweet blades.
Mitchell Black, what up? TM, what's cracking? Sport Brand, you're the shit. All right. Hey, Mr. Guest, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to keep you behind the door just for now until Light joins us too, okay? You look beautiful, by the way. Light. You there, Light?
Yeah, I'm here, man. How y'all doing?
Good, man. I don't see your beautiful mug.
I'll have video up here in a couple minutes.
Okay, no
I'm
problem.
trying to nurse this damn migraine right now. Oh, is that one of the German axe heads?
The thing is beautiful.
Hangover. It's called a hangover.
No, it's not a hangover. It's nerve migraine.
Did you forge that, Dude?
No.
I was gonna say, damn, you hiding some skills. All right, guys. So we got we got a really fucking cool stream today, and hiding behind door number 1 is a friend of ours, Josh, and let's go ahead and bring him in. Senor Josh, how are you, my friend?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good, man. How about you? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear y'all fine. Can y'all hear me?
It's a little light, a little muffled. It's almost like you're wearing a mask, but
Yeah, don't get COVID for myself.
yeah, it's good to wear it in the car, By any chance, if you have like a headset, headphones, or anything like that, that may work better, may keep down on the echo. Otherwise, what I would say is in between chatting, we may just want to utilize the mute button or turn your speakers down too. But either one will work. So,
Yeah, let me get some headphones real quick.
all right, cool. Take your time.
Hey, Doug, question for you, brother.
Dark's like, we may want to use headphones.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug.
So,
so that's 100% no on the thing that I brought to your attention, because I'm gonna reply back to him tomorrow, and I just want to know if it's 100% no or not.
why are we talking about this on the street?
I'm not talking about anything. I'm just asking if it's a yay or nay.
I mean, in terms of, if we're talking about the thing with email, like I'm not doing that.
All right. No problem.
What the fuck?
Gotcha.
We're talking about the sun.
Yeah. Don't look at it.
Yeah, the moon, the sun, the sky. Just while we wait, oh no, we actually Dugan, we can chat about it later. I meditated on that, man. I got nothing. Got nothing for you.
I mean, I fucking told you guys before that I didn't want, like I said, if it's just how it sounds, then yeah, it wasn't how it sounds, so I'm not doing it. It's not, it's exactly what I said I wasn't going to do.
Yeah. No. All right, let's Mr. Joshi. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Oh, that's beautiful. I could nurse that all day. That's wonderful. So welcome. If you notice, we've made some changes, guys. We got our beautiful cranberry hibiscus flower. We got a little banner that says Dark Lady Dugan Live. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you found us, when you found us, and just kind of introduce yourself to the folks here.
Yeah, sure. So, kind of like, I assume, I know y'all had one guest that didn't really know Carnicon, but obviously he's a fan of Carnicon, and just kind of took it for the humor that it was, and like, hey, it's funny, it's awesome. Who doesn't want to shoot an AK out of a sweater, right? So the so it's like that, and and then Carnicon kind of went away. It was like, okay, well, guess he's going on to bigger and better things. Wish the best for him, and then. I don't know, maybe it was about maybe a year ago or so. I don't know, but maybe it's about a year. I saw a thread on Arfcom that was like, Dugan's back and he's crazy or something like that. And this is after I already saw the thing on primary, secondary. And I was like, and I just kind of like read like the initial title. I'm like, man, that sucks. I heard he had MS. I'm sure he's dealing with a lot. I hate to hear that. Like I have a family member who has a disease that's currently misdiagnosed as MS. My first thought was maybe this disease isn't this other rare thing. Maybe it is MS, and so I did a little research on MS, and then I was like, man, MS doesn't cause like mental like you know, degradation. It's just it's so anyone kind of tossing that around, kind of full of I haven't done the research, right? So anyways, yeah. There's a so fast forward, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. There's a thread about on ARPCOM about the ATF reclassifying the pistol braces as SDRs and all that other stuff, right? So anyway, so I just saw, I was like, I was specifically talking about when Dugan duct taped the SIG braces to his like chest. I'm like, Dugan was the hero we needed, but we didn't deserve, or something like that. And anyway, someone messaged me. He's like, "Hey, Dugan's back. Like, you need to check this out." And then that's when I kind of got introduced to you guys. And after talking, and then I really didn't wasn't familiar with the Fooger Eater archive stuff until after you and I after Dark and I talked a couple of days ago. I'm like, okay, I definitely want to give it a shot, and listen to it. Listen to it a lot yesterday and today, and I mean, and best I can tell, and I guess in Dugan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the video that's in the Booger Reader archive about, hey, tell Arfcom that they don't know what they're talking about, and all that other stuff, was that in response to the original thread? I guess that I never like read or cared about. I guess on there, because I mean I don't have time to live on the internet, so.
Wait, what are you asking me?
I guess
Bring the mic just a hair closer to your mouth. Sorry.
Just rephrase. I just couldn't understand what is the question.
I guess you had a thread that you posted, or excuse me, a video that you posted, like, hey, response to Arfcom or something like that. I'm assuming that is in response to the that initial thread, like, hey, Dugan's crazy or whatever.
Yeah. So I started. Originally I made. I didn't make videos. I was making like Twitter posts. I had a personal Twitter. I was doing Twitter posts, And then out of that, then there was an ARCOM thread that was like Dugan's crazy, and then I didn't really care that much. The only thing that bugs me about it, which people are probably starting to understand, is that there's like a synthesis where people will act like they're regular people, and they will discredit. They'll discredit an idea by they'll synthesize the aroma that somebody's like insane, but it's merely to discredit, and it's not like a genuine thing. So they try to synthesize that there's like hey guys, we're all in a big club here, and like me and Bob say that this guy's crazy, you shouldn't listen to anything they say, and they're like yeah, everybody got that. Well, nudge nudge nudge, like, and then what's unfortunate about it is that like regular people that would be discerning people that may or may not potentially take interest in something, because of the format of like social media and of like mass shaming and group psychology, it really discounts it discounts. Well, it doesn't matter if it discounts people. The problem is that America needs to wake up in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of people here that are working really hard to prevent that. And so that's what it makes it forced me in that position where it's like, okay, I guess we're going to play this game. So then I have to like make a bigger splash to reply, simply so that the people that aren't those people that are normal people will see that like I'm awake and alive. You know what I mean?
Dude, even when I found you in January of December 19, January 20, like somewhere around that time frame, the first thing that I thought, and I was a huge Chronicon fan, was shit, we lost Dugan, man. He's crazy. But when I started listening, that's when I started kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and everything kind of fell together in a timeline. And yeah, so sorry. Back to you, Josh.
No, yeah, not the yeah, and then like I said, right now there's a thread on there that says maybe Dugan wasn't so crazy. It's on there right now, and it's I said I didn't really read any of that original thread, but it seems like you're kind of avant-garde when it comes to some of that stuff. At least with the kind of the echo chamber that is ARFCOM. Anyways, but yeah, so started listening to all the Dark Like Dugan podcasts, and it was I'm like, I mean, kind of been reading stuff on my own and everything, and it was just really refreshing to hear someone, and to hear a group of people, y'all plus y'all's guests, be very kind of honest about what's going on, and it's you don't hear that, or you don't even read that. Like the honesty was, like the biggest takeaway from me. So that's why I'm here, I guess. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because it's like the I mean the topic's very large in terms of how it's applicable to Americans. I think the broad like the broad picture of it is that Americans need to become a little bit more present and less docile in their lives. Like, be conscious in their lives. What is that?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
I was gonna ask if that was you, Light.
No, that's not on my end.
Did someone get a heater like Dugan has? I'm on mute. Okay, all right.
So fucking cool. Whatever it is. Sounds like 8-bit, like Nintendo.
Someone said ARFCOM is jamming the signal. That's great. The Flapper 2000. Okay, so
Josh is with us. Is Josh fucking with us just the whole time? Is that what it is?
Josh, are you 1-1?
I don't know what the fuck that is.
That's what 1-1 would say.
That's exactly what Walmart would say. Exactly.
It's that
So we're gonna
get back.
take this as a hostile interview now. Shots fired.
So, okay, Josh, tell us a little bit about what you do, and let's break in that similar to the conversation you and I had the other day.
Yeah, sure. So currently work for one of the three-letter intel agencies. I've been doing that for almost a decade. Before then, I was working uh, military intelligence stuff. And this is all on the contractor or VA or DoD civilian side. And before then, I was working at say at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, where Cyber Command used to be before they relocated to Fort Gordon, and INSCOM, Intelligence and Security Command. And before then, I was working at Fort Huachuca, which is where the U.S. Army Intelligence School is, but rarely worked there. We were usually kind of out in the field doing stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's what I do. Kind of, that pays the bills. And on the other side of I'm in the reserve. So yeah, nasty girl, reservist, whatever. Go ahead. I'll take the jokes, whatever. I got thick skin. Anyways, yeah. So I was actually at AIT when 9/11 happened, and I mean, that's no sense for kind of rehash that, right? But so since then, because of because of 9/11, everything obviously got like several overseas deployments by this point in time. Two to Iraq, one to Afghanistan, one elsewhere in the Middle East. Obviously, with that. And but a lot of it is training First Nation forces, or advising First Nation forces. Which is fun or not. So the got a lot of experience dealing with different tactical and operational intel collection systems, and the analysis of kind of data that feeds all that. So, and don't really want to talk about it. I mean, obviously can't talk about anything that's classified here tonight. I can't, right? But there's enough information out there that's unclassified, right? That and just think of everything that I say, that if I'm telling you what's happening, right, or that hey, there's this unclassified capability out there, or this capability that I'm telling you about is unclassified. Well, that probably means there is a capability or asset or system or something like that that's now better than that. And that thing's classified. I mean, like a quick kind of story to kind of see where I'm coming from. So everyone knows kind of the Gary Powers getting shot down. He was flew the U-2 over Soviet Union, was shot down by an SA-2, right? Well, our response to that was, oh, well, we can't just fly U-2s over the Soviet Union anymore. And that's really when our first imagery satellites, got put up. And that's history at this point. I mean, that's 60 years old, as far as when that happened. So we really didn't need, say, U-2s to monitor, Soviet ICBM, tells, or Soviet, or whatever equipment we're looking for, right? We didn't need a U-2 to fly over the Soviet Union, because hey, we got the Talon Keyhole satellite up in the sky and stuff like that. So Talon Keyhole is unclassified, right? I mean, so going back to what I said earlier, there's obviously stuff better than Talon Keyhole out there. So now Talon Keyhole is just it's just a SCI. It's just Talon Keyhole just identifies a type of information. That's all it does. So anyway, but yeah,
Hey Josh, I want to interrupt you just to let you know, if there's something that you get, your audio sounds like dog shit. So if you have a way to plug the headphones in so that stops the feedback. I just don't want everybody to miss out on what you're saying.
I think if you grab the mic and just hold it right next to your queef mask, that would probably be like perfect.
Is this any better? Actually, the headphones I have are some shitty ones from Delta or American Airlines that the freebies. So
it's a little better. I'm not gonna lie. Too.
All right, let me give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah. And it's because we find value in what you're saying. We don't want the world to miss it. The world cannot miss this.
The broadcast is live.
Yeah. So says it on the.
I'm doing an analysis on that house plant. I'm doing an intelligence analysis right now on the house plant. It looks like a succulent. What is that?
I was gonna say, watch like his like a prescription and a vehicle registration be right there.
Oh, that happens all the time.
What up, Pacone?
Cone's up in here.
Yeah,
Cone's the man.
dude.
Pacone, I planted a bunch of hazelnut and pawpaws today. I got 500. It's gonna take me a while. I got 20 of them in today.
He put in a bunch of trees recently too. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. It's fucking great. You're not gonna regret that, buddy.
Yeah, man. And it's funny that there's that saying, right? Like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago or today?
The hazelnuts are really cool because you get nut off of them, so it's protein, and they're bushes, so they're pretty quick.
Pacone said hazelnut and what?
Pawpaw is this crazy ass Missouri fruit tree it's very similar. It's very old. It's got like old prehistoric type leaves, and then the fruit on it is like it's kind of shaped like a, I don't know what you call it, like a potato, and then it has a crazy smell. The root system and the blooms smell kind of like rotten meat. I kind of like it. To me, it's a really good smell. It's like a real pungent smell. And then the fruit is real short, so you get about 2.5 weeks of ripe fruit, and you got to pick it all. And it's kind of like it's very variable in the phenotypes, so you get huge range of taste, but it's typically like banana. It's like banana pineapple.
It's funny because I was actually watching a documentary on the Lewis and Clark expedition, and they were describing like pawpaw and a couple of other indigenous fruit trees and plants that are a very, very, very rare and non-sought out commodity nowadays. But a lot of people in the chat are talking about it. They're saying the Michigan banana and a couple other things like that. But I heard they're actually pretty dang good.
All right, let's test this audio out.
All right, how do my wife's headphones sound?
A little bit better.
They sound kinker.
I think that's a lot better.
Yeah. If we get to a point where it's tough, and guys in the comments, the 75 people in the comments for the 45 federal agents and the remaining 30, let us know how the audio is. And if we get to a point, honestly, dude, if you feel more comfortable, you can cut the camera and take the mask off and talk. I think that'll open up audio a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, please continue. I think, Dugan, were you asking a question, or Josh, were you talking?
Well, I was really curious. I was curious what it was, if you could kind of describe the experience of being in AIT when 9/11 happened.
That's a great question. So there was actually a change of command ceremony at Fort Huachuca scheduled for that day. So we were supposed to all go to the parade field, and it's the post commander. Actually, the outgoing post commander is retiring. Anyway, so they were supposed to fly a SEMA aircraft, like a guardrail, which is a SIGINT bird, right? Signals collection aircraft. So they're supposed to fly a guardrail over the parade field. Obviously, all the airplanes are grounded and everything. Anyway, so there's like three like channel like radio stations, and you can get it for Huachuca. There's like one like it's like NPR, this like real horrible top 40 channel, and probably like a Mexican channel, right? So like by default, if you got on a bus to go anywhere, you were listening to top 40 channel, and which was cool because you got some exposure to pop music and stuff like that. So, but one thing I really remember was like it's like probably in between like Britney Spears and like Justin Timberlake songs or something like that. This guy in this real top 40 DJ voice, he's like, and this just in, a second plane has hit the other World Trade Center. Now back to your originally scheduled in sync, or whatever. I'm just like, what the?
Yeah, that's what's crazy. What he's describing is like for people that were. I was young. I was in high school, and when the planes hit, it was like the news. It's just like a lot of other things. People are so conditioned by like the guidance of media, the guidance of like a higher invisible authority, that it extends into their ability to grieve or to be excited. And so like people aren't allowed to be alarmed unless they're told to be alarmed. Yeah. And so like, when 9/11 happened, when that plane hit, it's exactly how he's describing, where all the news channels and everything, they would like skip over to it and show like, and a plane is crashing the World Trade Center, and now we're going back to fucking burgers and ball, and then they'd flip back over and they'd be like going, and then everybody went back like 5 minutes later and was like, wait, the world's ending,
Yeah. Oh, and there are people jumping.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was probably in the best place for indoctrination. I was in my ROTC class, and we got word the first plane hit, the class before or whatever, and then got to ROTC. They already had ROTC. They already had the TV on. We sat down. Everybody was just dead silent. It was Navy ROTC. So you got a former captain and two former chiefs, retired, and nobody's saying a damn word. And all of us knuckleheads, getting all ramped up to go in, are just watching it, just like dumbfounded. We don't even know what to make of it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Please continue, Josh. Sorry about that.
No, it was just it was so surreal. But like whether it was ROTC or even AIT, it was like, okay, training still goes on. So we did the change command. Like even the drill sergeants, like, man, half of y'all just like stay on the bus. Don't even worry about staying in formation at parade field. Listen to what's going on, because y'all are about to go somewhere, right? And anyway, so we get back to the barracks, and I still remember this drill sergeant from New Jersey was just like, we're all about to go to fucking war, blah blah, all this other stuff, and I joined pre 9/11. I didn't join not to fight, but I also joined with the I guess the impression, hey, no one's dumb enough to mess with us, right? So stupid kind of 17-year-old mind, right? So anyways, yeah. So the one group's like, hey, call your family. Like, there's so much disinformation, bad information coming out there right now. Call your families back home and tell them you're okay. And because I remember there was a report about like a car bomb going off the State Department, like, and stuff like that, and all this other information that was happening. I remember initially they were saying, I guess just when people saw the smoke from the Pentagon, they thought like a helicopter crashed at the helo pad in the middle of the Pentagon, or something like that. And it was like, so there's a lot of bad information, so the drill sergeant's like, hey, call your family, let them know you're okay. anyways, then so I called my parents, and my mom is very in tune with kind of like stuff, right? She's like, I bet it was that Bin Laden guy. And of course, I'm like, I don't know. I've been worried about like stuff other than that, right? But anyways, so but it ended up going to class later on that day. And then obviously in training, didn't even didn't even worry about the whatever was on the curriculum that day. I think we just got through doing SASO, which is the precursor to um, stability and support operations, which is kind of what we were doing in Iraq post invasion, in Afghanistan post invasion. Anyway, so the training continued, and that was it. Like it was just like, hey, the machine still drives on, right? But then even before I even graduated from AIT, we already had people who graduated in platoons ahead of us that were in 101st, they get orders to Fort Campbell and they know they're going to Afghanistan like immediately, right? And we're like, shit, he was like 3 cycles ahead of us. Now dude's going to Afghanistan. We're like, this is crazy, right? So, but yeah, it became very real very fast. And I guess because of that, and especially it being a very uh, at a time where where your mind's changing from adolescent to an adult, or at least just beginning to, it had an effect, and because of that, I really couldn't see the big picture, for a long time, and it was just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go kill some terrorists, yeah, we'll get the mayor abs, and stuff like that, which is, in retrospect, I didn't have the mental maturity to even handle a deeper conversation about everything. So, it is what it is at the end of the day, so.
I think everybody that served has a parallel of that experience of like there's two different, and even for lifers there's like a similar thing. Like there was definitely like the dudes, like the old Rangers and stuff that were in the units, they would be like, it was almost like you just got the feeling. I mean, I didn't notice it then, but nowadays thinking back, like there were a lot of old timers that were like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm like, we're on the team, we're on, we're on the same team, so you guys are my team, but like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, and you could kind of sense it. I mean, they were they were about it, going and like fighting, like they like to fight whoever, anybody, anytime, but like in terms of the pride thing, like it was definitely like you could just kind of feel it, especially after they did a few rotations and like got a bunch of losses with like younger guys and stuff. They would be they kind of seemed to have like their own parallel of that experience, but they didn't voice anything. You know what I mean? Like nobody ever voices anything. Nobody says anything. Everybody's too afraid to be like anti-patriotic.
Well, I kind of, but there's one experience that kind of stuck out to me was when I was in Afghanistan after Bin Laden had been killed. So,
Real quick, Josh, a few people mentioned if you do use acronyms, you may need to stop and explain what they are because a lot of people may be unfamiliar. But
yeah, sure, I'm going to be bad about that. But yeah, if I screw up, just let me know.
no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, so when I was in Afghanistan after my Afghanistan deployment was after Bin Laden had already been killed, and then anyways, one of the 18 Deltas, one of the special forces medics on our camp, got killed during a kinetic a raid they had going on that they were paired up with the Afghans, the Afghan National Army. And then pretty much the guy died because the Afghans kind of pussied out. I mean, and by the Afghans I mean our partnering forces. So this guy ended up having to so basically the Afghans would not fucking shoot, right? That they were more concerned about taking cover. So this 18 Delta gets up and it's like, well, fuck it. If you're going to get on the gun, I'm going to get on the gun. And gets on the gun and he takes it in the neck. and obviously doesn't make it. And then, that kind of hit all of us hard. And then I was sitting there, and we were all kind of somber for a while. Like it was like probably not a word was said, like for like a day, right? Because like everyone's like, everything fucking sucks. Like why the fuck are we? Yeah, everyone's thinking, why the fuck are we in Afghanistan? Like Bin Laden got killed, like he's dead. Like why the fuck are we here, right? And anyway, so one of my buddies, he was a captain at the time. He's just like, he looks at me, he's like, why the fuck are we here, right? He was like, why the fuck did that guy just get, what the fuck is all this for? Like, why the fuck are we here? Why the fuck are we fighting here? And I was like, everything he says right, but I was like, hey, you're fighting for me. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for that guy. You're fighting for, like, we're fighting for each other. It doesn't. We're not fighting for some like greater like noble cause here. We're fighting because we're a fucking team. We're a fucking element. Like we're friends. We're boys. I don't want your wife to get that fucking knock on the door by the dude in his class A's or ASU's or whatever. I want us to go back home and and live great lives. Who gives a shit if the one got killed before we got here? So it was hard in Afghanistan. I mean, yeah. I thought the shows kind of start off light and then we get into deeper shit later, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is like I talk about this stuff all the time, so I get used to it. I'm kind of like calloused, but we can talk about whatever. How about we move on to? Can I ask some stuff about like? So I'm just going to touch on stuff that is it's sensitive in terms of like its analysis. It's not sensitive in terms of like in terms of military intelligence, because military intelligence has like an open close case where like this is what happened, boom, 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 it's done. Here's the history. But are you familiar with Masood in Afghanistan?
Oh yeah, actually, to kind of prevent one of the to prevent a green on blue incident, I actually had a Masood poster put up on my B hut door. So I was like, maybe this, some Afghan goes crazy, wants slacking Americans, maybe he comes to this door and passes.
That's a good idea. So for anybody that's watching this, so Masood, that'd be Ahmed Masood was kind of, he's like the equivalent of like George Washington for Afghanis. And so he's like, so like if you're a young guy, you might not know this, but like, the to give a real rough history, like after World War II, you had the United States and the Soviet Union, and basically like the funds of the world, of like the organized world, got like developed into pipelines to feed both of our military structures to pump them up, and then we fought like little proxy wars. So the Afghans got a housewarming gift from the Soviets before us. So like the Soviets went to Afghanistan, and it was a lot more equivalent to like Vietnam. So it would have been the when was that was up until 1980, right? Like 1970s, 1980.
Yeah, the invasion was 79, and then I want to say it was 89 when they finally pulled all their troops out.
Okay, I'm a decade off. Sorry. Yeah, so 79 to 89, and it was pretty intense fighting. Lots of convoys, but without the high speed communication stuff that we have. And they kind of supplemented that. The Soviets supplemented that with air, like like attack helicopters and like MiGs and lots and lots and lots of armor. So they had like huge armor columns that would roll through there. And then Ahmed Masood, he was basically just using his familiarity with terrain, and then the kind of what modern Afghan vets will understand as plunging fire, which is when you use the gravitational impetus of high altitude to extend the range of your fire. So you could take a like a cruiser weapon and mount it at high elevation, and then you can fire it to its terminal. You can fire the weapon and hold at its terminal velocity and extend the range with gravity. So it's like if you're not familiar with this, like let's say if you were standing on top of a skyscraper and shooting straight down. Let's say you're standing on top of I don't know what's like a really tall building, like the Empire State Building or something. And if you're shooting like straight down to the sidewalk, right, your point of impact will actually not, like normally that distance, whatever that is, you're going to have like holdover, right, to account for your external trajectory. Yeah, when you're shooting straight down because of altitude, you're only going to be like you're going to be. I mean, you're basically if you're straight up and down, you're going to have like probably an inverse effect, but it's not. You're not going to have any kind of gravitational pull down or anything on your external. So that's what plunging fire is, as a less extreme version, but they're shooting from mountaintops. So Masood did this, and then he was using complex ambushes where most of them would be like they would wait for armored columns to come through choke points, and then they would have like guys in wadis and stuff. He'd have like a dismounted patrol on standby in a wadi, and then they would open up from the top of the hills, immobilize the convoys, and then they just do like a like an L-shaped ambush, and they'd sweep through and shoot everybody, and it was really successful. But that's Masood. And then what was really interesting that I found out about this like recently is in the last 10 years. So Masood got the Stinger program. So the United States did the Stinger program through the State Department with the Northern Alliance. So if you remember the Northern Alliance, when we went into Afghanistan later, the Northern Alliance was like our ally. But the way that shaped out in terms of like the difference between what we perceive as Americans, the story, like the kind of the picture that we're shown of like the Northern Alliance, they just want to help us, and we're all going for the Super Bowl here. It wasn't really like that. What was really going on was that the Northern Alliance was the remnants of Masood's organic military force from Afghanis that he stood up out of nowhere. So like the Soviets were, basically using it as like a test sandbox to test weapons and tactics and stuff. And then Masood was like an organic dude that was a natural leader that was competent in running, raids and whooping Soviet ass. So what happened was the CIA and the State Department started a program with the Northern Alliance during the Soviet War to give them stingers, and they started shooting down aircraft. But what happened was the stingers, they were pumped up really big in the media, and they were pumped up really big, in the DOD and the State Department. But on the ground, like Masood didn't like them because he didn't think that they were that effective. They were really effective at causing SOP changes for the Soviets, where they had to start flying at higher altitude, where their bombs were less effective. But the stingers weren't effective for like, positively destroying aircraft. They had like a relatively low success rate. And so Masood, having, from his perspective, having being like the only thing that's saving Afghanistan and kind of having like a big head about it, he really resented the international he felt like it was like the stealing of Afghan glory and Afghan autonomy, with the State Department and the CIA running like publishing stories about how the CIA basically like won Afghanistan with the Stinger missiles. And so that through that, after the Soviets left, Masood and his militias, the Northern Alliance, pretty much had, they basically had carved out for themselves an autonomous militia force for their nation that was independent of, traditional diplomatic influence, which would be money. They were somewhat, independent of that. And then the CIA attempted to reapproach Masood afterwards, and it went really bad, where like he wouldn't allow CIA to like freely operate in Afghanistan. And so like there was a period prior to 9/11 where, you know, the spooks had a hard time like operating in Afghanistan because, you know, Massoud was like holding that bitch down and not letting the CIA in there because he didn't trust him. Massoud, for anybody that doesn't know this, and this comes to the question I was going to ask is if you knew about this. So Ahmed Massoud got assassinated on, I think it's September 9th. I think he died on September 10th, 2001. And the kind of the normal story, the public narrative is that Tunisian Al-Qaeda with Tunisian passports posed as a television crew, and then they used like plastic explosives in the camera, and then suicide detonated the camera and killed them. But it's a very you know, to me it's really revealing. But I want to know if you heard about that or what you thought about that.
Yeah, so I've kind of always heard the narrative that the assassination attempt by the Tunisian Al Qaeda that was posing as as a Tunisian journalist and everything, and and I always kind of heard that in story. I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like some shit Al Qaeda would do. Okay, and it didn't really give it any question, but then the whole. It almost seems that when I started thinking about things more critically, it's like the timing seems too like good, right? I mean, September 9th, so 2 days before 9/11, you're talking about a suicide bombing that takes out, the Taliban's main opposition, right? The leader of the Taliban's main opposition. At that point in time, the Northern Alliance was driven back. I mean, pretty hard in the north. And northeastern part of Afghanistan. I mean, they almost didn't really need to kill Massoud, but whatever, right? But when I start looking at the timing, right? Like you're telling me they can do a suicide bombing on to schedule a TV interview with a guy in the Panjshir Valley. Right, where if you're foreign, and I don't just mean foreigner, like if you're not from that valley, you go into it, you're gonna get your ass beat. I mean, and by that I mean like militarily, like you're not, I mean, there's only one way into that valley and one way out, so if you're gonna go there, like you're going there with permission. So to arrange, that type of trip just to get some suicide bombers in and everything. 2 days before 9/11, I mean, the timing seems too good, right? Or hey, if I was Al Qaeda and I was doing, I wanted to kill my host, from Pashtunwali. I wanted to kill my host, number one adversary, but also I want to pull off the greatest, attack since Pearl Harbor, right? Against the great Satan or whatever. And, so it almost seems, and this is. The timing is way too good to be for it to be Al Qaeda, if that makes sense, and that's just speculation.
Hey Josh, let me stop you for a second. Dugan, sorry, hang tight. Go ahead and cut your. Actually, I'll cut your cam. Then take the. Actually, I can't. You have to. Go ahead and cut your camera and take the mask off because people really want to hear you. And it's muffled. I turned your mic up to max, though. It's like 200%. Let's give it a shot now. Try your audio.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I was burning the fuck up wearing that mask. Okay, good. So the timing is way too good. I mean, you're talking about an attack, hijacking 4 airplanes in the United States. From originating from 3 or 4 different airports or whatever, attacking, 2 or 3 different targets. I mean, 2 are known, the trade centers and the Pentagon. There's speculation on where the flight that crashed into Pennsylvania would have gone. So that's just a little too advanced at that point in time.
The thing that really got me about it was the you know, because now, like, hindsight being 2020, if you look at everything, it's like, I mean, in terms of Afghanistan and how the way that it played out. So, like, these days you have, you know, I mean, it's not unusual, at least in the media, to hear stories about, you know, they'll talk about the Taliban having meetings, you know, like peace meetings and stuff, and diplomatic meetings, in order to, like, try to find some kind of resolution to the conflict. That's a fairly common thing in, like, the last 5 years that you'll hear about. That's kind of almost like unheard of when the war started. But looking at the entire big picture, you know, like, I see what's really unusual, or what's really red-handed about it, is that the you know, like, because of the disposition between Massoud and the American military after they tried to, you know, help during the Soviet campaign, it gives you the impression, it leaves you with wondering, number one, are the Americans just picking up where the Soviets left off? And number two, you know, for something that's greater, that's outside of the national interest, that's in a global interest, and the teams don't really matter. And number two, you know, the disposition between Massoud and the American military, he's really set up to, like, easily, you know, if he's the George Washington of Afghanistan, and then the America comes into there going after Osama, and then ends up, you know, completely saturating the entire country. Like, there's a very logical possibility that Massoud would just flip and just be like, nope, the Americans are just like the Soviets, kill the Americans. You see what I'm saying? And then you know, to me, that's like the greatest, that's the greatest kind of giveaway of, like, the intent of why he's killed. Because obviously, if Massoud is still alive and holding power, and the Americans come in, like, obviously he's going to be, like, suiting up, you know, even if it's for assisting the Americans with, like, you know, being a host to drive out Taliban, because that's in his interest. It could easily spiral into a situation where it's like, okay, we're killing the Taliban and we're going to kill the Americans because they're not, you know, listening to what we say. They're operating freely. Like, it could very easily turn into a you know, let's throw off the imperial invaders. And so this to me seemed like the major motive behind assassinating him, in terms of hindsight being 2020. And I'm not asking you to make a comment on that. I just, you know, that's kind of how I saw it. I didn't know if you'd like considered any of that.
I guess the big thing that I consider when looking at it is look at, and we've talked about, you know, I guess we haven't talked about it, but y'all talked about it. You know, the amount of, you know, I don't know where to kind of lead into it. I mean, let's just kind of put it out there. Afghanistan produces a lot of opium, right? I mean, a lot. And then you know, to act like there's not an American interest in that is naive. I mean, if you look at, I think it's the Kajeki Dam in Kandahar province. I mean, that was built by, like, the Kandahar Valley Authority, a U.S. Corps of Engineers or USAID type thing that was modeled after the TVA, you know, the Tennessee Valley Authority that we have in the United States. I mean, so the Kandahar River or whatever river that the Kajeki Dam is on, you know, it really wasn't until that river was tamed that all of a sudden, wow, now all of a sudden you have all this great farmland. Well, what's the soil good for growing for?
To interrupt for a quick tie-in. So Tennessee Valley Authority is also the presiding body overwatching EO 13920.
Okay, I'm kind of unfamiliar with the deal with that.
Dark, can you me fill them in on 13920? It was just a cliff note for viewers, because they may not be familiar with Tennessee Valley Authority.
13920 is the EO for the electrical. What's it called? I'm
Electrical
The bulk,
security,
bulk
the control of
the
electrical
switches,
and infrastructure,
right?
right?
The switches.
Yeah. I think this might pertain along the same lines. I've heard Biden just signed off an HR or an executive order, basically giving China access to our electrical grid.
Which they already had anyway from 13920, basically.
Right, but this was an executive order that just got passed recently, from what I've heard. I didn't really look into it too deep, but I did see that it was there. So
Yeah, I
this
heard the
it
same
further
thing.
ensuring it.
I heard the same thing as well. Apparently, what 13920 was, as I understood it, is that all of the switches for every single power plant in the United States were being switched to Chinese-made switches that were capable of remote access, meaning that they could be turned on and off remotely. um, simply put.
well, now it's not necessarily. It's not necessarily Chinese, but the software it's it's international software. You know, so it's like an entire software protocol package for how the U.S. powers run. And then it came in May. And it had 1 year. It had 1 year for completion, and then they did the reversal with Biden. And so like whatever was already done, you know, was already executed in that period of time. So it got done, but it's not like officially done. And then they switched it, so now they can say like, oh, China got it, you know. But anyway, that's kind of a distraction. So I apologize, but because you mentioned TVA with Afghanistan, I thought it was important to be able to tie the dots together for viewers that, you know, may not be familiar with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal. And I made a mistake earlier. I said the Kajeki Dam's in Kandahar. I believe it's in Helmand. I think it's on the Helmand River, not Kandahar. Anyways, but you look at anyone's been deployed to like RC South or SOTIF South, like or I think it's called TAC South now in Afghanistan. Opium's a big deal. I mean, that river flooded a lot until there was the flood control on it and everything, and then all of a sudden you control that river that floods a lot. It has it's now now you can have agriculture off of that, which I guess makes Americans feel good or whatever. But then growing opium, like when I was in Afghanistan, there was a some type of effort that they were trying to get because of the soil in Afghanistan, or at least in parts of Afghanistan. They were like, hey, we found out that soil and conditions that are great for growing opium are also good and great for growing pomegranates. So, hey, Afghans, why don't you stop growing opium and grow pomegranates? And of course, they're like, let's see, we can make a bunch of money off opium or a little money off pomegranates. Yeah, we're going to keep on taking risks, right? So, so and I guess that when you look at big, I hate using the terms like big pharma and like big media and stuff like that, but because that at that point makes it kind of a nameless, faceless entity. But you can look at the pharmaceutical companies that have shown interest in Afghanistan, and maybe they have gotten stuff out there, but there's been a lot of interest in Afghanistan from pharmaceutical makers because hey, I mean, opiates are hell overly prescribed. I mean, they are. They're. I mean, they were done. I mean, they were prescribed. Without telling people that hey, there's these horrible side effects.
Yeah,
And not
well,
just that.
huge thing about opium. So opium's been a big deal with a center picture in micro military conflicts internationally for a really long time. So like before, I'm fuzzy on it when you go like, you know, I don't know, mid 1800s or earlier, but it's certainly long before that. The you know, like the Marine Corps did, you know, you had like the Boxer Rebellion in China, and that would have been starting in like the 1890s, I believe, if my date's right. And it was basically an international, like an international, very similar to like the UN, but not called the UN. The UN is not established yet at this point, but basically a multinational force, which, you know, ding, 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 this should sound familiar to Afghanistan. So a multinational force set up against the Chinese will on like the Chinese coast. You know, they basically went there and set up shops where they would hire local Chinese to, you know, I mean, they would get Chinese to build opium export, you know, processes for international opium production, and then those Chinese contacts would then hire out of the population to, like, you know, run the entire thing. And then the Boxer Rebellion was like the indigenous Chinese fighting the multinational force, and this was the you know, this is on a rotational basis of military guarding the operations between like all the nations that were a part of this drug deal. So it'd be like the United States. The most notable one was Japan. So Japan would do a rotation in there, and they would do a lot of rotations, more rotations than others because of their proximity to the facilities and the rail line. And so this is where you get the animosity built up between, you know, at least in a modern sense, between Japan and China for like World War II and like Nanking and all that shit, is from Japanese rotations into China. But this is the opium, international opium production is it's almost like this major source of stimulation for the world, both in terms of like the displacement caused by opium in consumption and selling, and the monetary, you know, profit side of it. And it's certainly true in Afghanistan. And there's certainly, you know, like large interest. Like I know that Johnson & Johnson pulls opium from Afghanistan, at least in some regard. But I think a lot of it is indirect to save face, where they go through you know, it's either like a minimum of a binary system, but possibly like ternary, where they're going through like 3 parties before it gets to the major international companies that everybody's familiar with. But just to give viewers some perspective on like how big opium is now in terms of the United States, obviously, you know, Josh mentioned, he mentioned just like, you know, he's just saying like off the cuff, he's saying like there's American interest in opium, but to be more nitpicky about it, there's really not an American interest, because Americans are left with, you know, like our drug epidemic right now, where you have the cops everywhere are having to administer whatever what is that shit called?
Narcan.
Yeah, Narcan. They're having to administer Narcan, which, by the way, is like, you know, all these drugs are the guys who make those drugs are rub shoulders with the people that are making the fucking opium drugs. And so like the whole thing is like a game. And then you have like the lawsuit, the huge multi-state lawsuit where the DA went after the Sackler family, and then they just filed bankruptcy to avoid I mean, like payments
fucking pulled out billions of dollars and hid them in shell companies and claimed bankruptcy. Yeah. Now they also, so the same people that are making drugs like oxycodone, hydrochloride, oxycontin, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, morphine, like all the major painkillers in the United States, and the world is different. Like there's other painkillers in other countries, but let's just call it the United States. Those same companies also make Suboxone, methadone, Subutex, which are all treatment drugs for opiates. and they also make Narcan, just like you said. And a lot of those companies have been accused of having ties to the opium trade. So it's literally just this big circle of just.
Not only that, they're also and now this is a stretch, but I'm dumb as fuck, so I'm comfortable saying it. In terms of the United States law enforcement disposition of how, what law enforcement focuses on, how grants come through, where you have meetings and it's like, well, we're worried about drugs this decade, like drugs, opium, fucking fentanyl, or whatever it is.
Yep.
That stuff doesn't come down like organically from necessarily. I mean, although I'm not saying there's not drug spikes everywhere, because there are. But what I'm saying is that like the drug spikes are a part of the package narrative that comes down from higher command through the national chain of directive, where they say like, now we're focusing on it's almost like it's like giving a kid a chore. Like you give a kid a chore and you're like, now it's time to clean the room. We're cleaning the room. And it's very similar to that. But I go so far as
I'm so sorry. Light, brother, if you still got a migraine, dude, just hop off. You're good. We love you. Go relax with the lights off. Put on some sunglasses.
Kick the feet up.
All right, brother.
Good night, brother.
Sorry, I could tell you.
So the fucking I would go so far as to say that the people that set up the disposition of the law enforcement apparatus nationally and directives are the same as the interests of opium and opium's answer.
Mm-hmm. And when you have any situation where it's either people in power or the government or whomever, when they have control of the problem and the solution, that's generally that's very control.
That's in terms of logic. If you're doing like a syntax analysis, right? If you provide a problem, like if nobody's doing anything, if you have a bunch of parties that are engaging and nobody understands what's going on, and everybody's just random fucking thoughts firing off, and they're just going about their day based off of that, then that is random. If you have a problem that you introduce that necessitates a response, then that is like now you have half of the equation of control. Once you have a problem and a solution, that is what control is.
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of a logic analysis here, just to kind of make a distinction between those ideas. We kind of stopped on Josh there.
Yeah, Josh, you still here, brother?
Yeah, no, I was enjoying listening to the conversation. It's with me having a lot of addiction issues in my family and everything, seeing the massive over medication of opium with the kind of happy, there's no side effects from this stuff. When as Dugan talked about, I mean, there's a thing called the Opium Wars where the European powers essentially doped up an entire country, and that's what began. China's what they call their, I think, century of change, century is something like that. But it's basically like saying, hey, this is when we got punked, for 100 years. I mean, and are you trying to tell me Bayer or Johnson & Johnson or Merck or whoever can suddenly make opium not addictive and not have all the side effects? Yeah, I'm gonna call bullshit on that, and plus it's and as y'all said, I mean, it's a lucrative business when you control the problem and the solution, and it's
right. I'll tell you, I personally had a lot of substance abuse issues myself, and it all started by me being prescribed medication, and then through a decade of abusing prescribed medication, I went to the streets, and I guarantee all of that shit came from opium plants in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and you look at opium production in Afghanistan. The last year that it was at zero was actually it was either 2000 or 2001, and then we come in there. Then all of a sudden, you look at opium production just starts going up and up and up, and it's just and so what is the bigger picture, right? What's the point of all this opium being produced? I mean, you look at the addiction issues in the United States, the overprescription of it, and then going back to killing the Massoud, and with the timing so close to 9/11, to think that there's, now, I know we've talked on the phone. I said I was going to talk about facts and everything, but those are facts. There's something bigger. It would be silly not to consider if something bigger was going on.
It's stepwise, is what you're saying. You're saying that like you can't discount that everything, like something occurs that may not have full clarity or full apparent clarity immediately, and then another thing develops, and then another thing, and then boom, they all tie together like a perfect a perfect flow of doors getting unlocked that were locked before, where it's like how, the whole thing added up to like now we have, fucking junkies everywhere, like there's people that are homeless and losing their houses and like people that are addicted to drugs that like would never be addicted to drugs. And it's like, fairly widespread in terms of the numbers, like in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
the organic natural state that would occur in versus having a stimulated influx of drugs. The occurrence is way higher, and so it's like that's like a door that got unlocked, and then you have to work backwards, and then you can see by working backwards that okay, these are like necessary steps to cause this that couldn't have happened, that would have been impeded if each step wasn't there to unlock it. It would have had a different effect. And then you look at just the broad picture, the state of things. It's like it's the weakening of the United States, right? So like ultimately, I mean, you could assign a million different motives. The top of the list would probably be like profit, is what most people would say. But the effect, in terms of the effect, like without an ideal of what we would assume would be the motive, when you stand back and you look at the big picture, you look at like the destabilization of the United States, especially when you combine it with the social upheaval that's going on right now, which is also, by the way, stepwise and in line with all this other shit that had to happen before, because you couldn't just have the 1990s unfold into like everybody shooting dope and Black Lives Matter protests and fucking like transvestites reading stories at libraries getting covered by the news, and people saying the federal government saying that like socialism is good, and all this stuff had to have doors unlocked to happen.
Bro, it is night and day from when we grew up, and that actually brings us to specifically what is the conversation that Josh and I had. Terrifying. So, Josh, with what you do professionally, what you've done after your military career and kind of where you are now, you and I had a conversation about data and information and everything that we use, that most people use in our daily basis, on our phones in our daily lives, how it's pulling and extracting data that we don't even realize we gave permissions to. And I want you to start with, I rarely do this, I want to guide you a little bit. I want you to start with that meme that you mentioned. The meme is
I remember. So there's a meme, and what I love about memes, kind of like stereotypes. There's truth into it, or it wouldn't be funny, right? Or it wouldn't be a stereotype, right?
Yeah, and I'm so sorry, real quick, just before you start, we have a couple special guests coming on, guys, to fill in for late. So don't be surprised when I bring them in. But sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so the meme shows like a woman, in the kitchen. She's on the telephone, obviously not a cell phone, but it's in the '60s black and white picture. And then you can see her saying on the phone, "Shh, you can't say that. This phone may be wiretapped." And then on the other side, it's like 1960s, and it's like 2020. It's like wiretap. Give me a recipe for brownies. Talking about an Alexa or an Echo Dot or whatever, right? And it's just like we're freely surrendering so much information, and I don't get it, right? I mean, you used to have like you used to have like your house used to have to be a bug would have to be physically installed. Like, hey, yeah, I'm here to fix your pipes that burst, and oh yeah, let me put this bug in, or I'm trying to, and you'll put a bug into your house to hear what you're saying when say behind a light bulb or something like that. And now we just we basically we don't just invite these devices into our homes. I mean, we can't live without them, right? And it's just like you don't need that. You don't need say like you're like Dark when you and I were talking. I talked about a documentary about East Germany that about the Stasi specifically, and it was so this woman was basically she was arrested because she wasn't kind of following kind of the East German communism. She was kind of like more like pro like Rosa Luxemburg or something like that. So she still got rolled. So she got rolled up by the Stasi. Interrogated for a couple of days. Boom, she's released. Right. But she always remembered that anyway. So the fall of the Berlin Wall comes, and then the now united Germany, they basically open up everyone's Stasi file, so you can go see what the Stasi was collecting on you as an East German citizen. And there's like all these intimate details, like about her and everything she said and everything. And come to find out, the source was her husband. I mean, like right now, like with the amount of information that you give your any device, whether it is your smart TV, your iPad, smartphone, the GPS in your car, like they don't need like your spouse to essentially snitch on you, right? Because you're doing it for them. Like if you're not being smart about it, and it scares the piss out of me because as someone who absolutely I guess values what was the Constitution, what is the Constitution, what's left of it, I guess. I mean, to me, illegal search and seizure is a big deal, right? And you can say, okay, right now, so what's going on with this data, right? How's this data being used? Well, it's not just randomly recording stuff. There's a purpose for it right now. I mean, like it's not surreptitious when you happen to call your wife or get a call from your wife or whatever, and then she say, "Hey, we're out of aluminum foil. Can you swing by the store and pick some up from work?" Like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then you or her log onto your Amazon app, and then there's Reynolds Wrap right there under suggested items. All that is being picked up, and right now it's just being really used to drive consumer behavior. I mean, it's still social engineering, but it's only social engineering for consumeristic behavior. And but that's still just, I mean, the fact that Jeff Bezos, or it's not him, obviously, but the megacorp is listening to my thoughts, right, or what my wife is telling me to do, like that doesn't sit well with me. And and they're collecting all this data, right? They're collecting a lot of it, and when where I work right now, big data is a buzzword, but big data is more than a buzzword. And big data it's when you get into big data type stuff, you start trying to ask yourself, how do you harness and use all this information? And then I mentioned the Amazon example, right? Like, look at who spoke at Amazon Web Services Public Sector Summit in 2018. Like, it was the assistant deputy director for digital innovation for the CIA. I mean, Amazon has, through AWS, a contract with CIA. Like, this is not classified. You can the Amazon boasts about it. They have a YouTube video of that deputy director for digital innovation speaking at their summits, bragging about it. It's crazy.
Over and over, they do it every year. That contract is signing on guys. We got CRS firearms.
What's up?
in here.
What up, CRS?
Not much. How's life, everyone?
Pretty good. We're getting deep.
Yeah, we're getting balls deep, man.
Remind me too after the stream. I'm dropping a video at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'll tell you the topic, and then if you do an exact topic on the same exact thing, because the video will go viral, you'll also have a viral video.
Oh, bro, let me know, man. I'm down for viruses.
No, I wanted to dunk on what Josh is saying here. So he said he was getting scared of the surveillance, and I think a lot of people. It's almost
You're
like
muffled. You're muffled a little bit, Dugan.
I'm muffled. How about
A lot of it.
Is that better?
No.
It's terrible.
It's
terrible.
perfect. There you go.
Is that better? Okay, it's reception. Sorry.
Much gooder.
Okay, so Josh was talking about the kind of the how scary the amount of surveillance is, but Americans are really kind of we're almost kind of like a decade behind, right? And we're a decade behind in the big picture, what's really going on, and the level, like the extent of what's going on. So just to paint a picture, of course your phones are obviously tapping all the time, right? So everything that you ever say is recorded. Your emails can be reconstructed. Your text messages, like there's open access to them. I mean, literally, it's a matter of the technological interface and the legal authority to look at it. That's the only thing holding it back. In terms of the bigger threat, which is honestly it is the biggest threat, and it's older than cell phone, like smartphones, and the vulnerability there is finance. So when you spend money, particularly since the invention of or the implementation of credit cards, when you go and spend money, everything like you can draw. Imagine how detailed of a map you can build on somebody from their credit card. So you know immediately where they live, if they have some other place that they go to regularly. Like let's say you had like a bunker somewhere, or I don't know what, like something that's off the books. Like let's say you're a smart guy off the books, but it's an hour away, so you have to stop by the gas station that's half a mile away, right? Every time you go there and get gas, you paint a picture of like you're going to the secret place or whatever. When you go try to associate with somebody where you're like, we're not going to do nothing, we're gonna meet up and talk and be secret. Well, when you guys both go, spend money on something in the same area, you have then an association. You have a transaction association by proximity. All of this stuff has had tools developed to identify this stuff beyond what even an analyst would be able to do. That's automated. So there are analysis tools to identify the likelihood of people knowing each other, the likelihood of it analyzes shit that the people may not even analyze. Like this guy drives by this guy every day or whatever. They can see all this stuff just from financial records, and it goes so far even into national chains. When you go to the gas station and you use your buyer's choice card or whatever, where you like scan the card, to get the discount at the gas station. All that's happening is you're getting a list of exactly what you bought by item being sent to buyers. So there are buyers that go through the national the national chains and purchase the list of all this information. They freely sell it. It's one of the terms, like when you accept one of the buyers club cards or whatever, a part of the term of that you're automatically accepting to get the good deal is that the itemized line list of what you purchase goes along with information they sell. Just so that like that's and then the chain gets a bunch of money out of that.
You give a discount, you're giving them money. This way you can collect their information, because in the long run, you'll make more money as a company knowing what their habits are, being able to meet their needs better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, there's definitely a dark side to it. Even with like credit cards, like you were saying, it tracks everything. But they also got a positive side. I mean, I haven't had a chick take money out of my wallet in a long time since I got a card now because she can't. So it's hard to not take that convenience.
But
It's
that's
very
designed. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead, Dugan.
It's very hard. It's very hard. The convenience is what has us. Like the convenience is what like the biggest thing financially about the United States is that's like it almost seems like intuitive, like we should have come up with a solution, but like like when we printed money, in the first place, when we got greenbacks, it says on there for all debts, public and private. Well, obviously at this point, physical money is antiquated technologically, right? So like after the internet comes along, which is relatively recent, the money is it's not adequate for the velocity at which people spend, right? Like people spend so often, they're gonna buy shit on the fly. It could be an emergency. Everything's set up like that, so they can't spend it. Well, the only choice that we have is through card companies that aren't American. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about like international companies. So their interest is not America, but then the United States government and like the people have never demanded to have a, like we could build a, theoretically, I don't even think that this would work or that this would solve the problem, but just to play devil's advocate, we could make an American, dollar system where you can, have instant transfer of money without having to use like a credit card company. You know what I mean? But instead of that, we've gone like, credit card, debit card, like that's too complex for anybody to figure out except for the international banks. So let's just have them do all of that. And then they just, they buy everything out. Like we have no competition.
Well, I don't care what they do as long as they get rid of coins. Like I threw so much money on the ground. Like I'd go through the drive-thru, I'd hand them my money, I'd take the bills out of their hand and slap the rest on the ground and drive away because coins in my pocket drive me insane. I can't express to you how angry they make me.
I love coins because I can take pretty much everything except for like a 1964 coin, which is like steel. Heat it in a prepping torch, couple the zinc out, and then you got a nice collection of zinc.
Right. But yeah, carrying them around on me, not acceptable. I hate change. Change is like the devil. But anyways, I jumped on the stream because you guys were talking about opiates earlier, and I actually have quite a lot of experience in it, and I wanted to jump into that conversation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead. What are you thinking?
Well, I missed a bunch because I had to get everyone prepared for me to jump on here. Where did you guys leave off at?
We just kind of transition.
Huh?
We just kind of transition to so we have a 3-letter agency federal employee on here that was here to discuss data mining, private information, those kinds of things. But we got on the topic of opiates because those are both GWAT guys. So we're just talking about the global war on terror and how it's basically about opium. And I struggled with substance abuse most of my life, and I got 10 years clean. And so we just kind of hit the topic.
Yeah, that stuff's bad. And it's literally the doctors pushing it too. Like when I went, because I was at work and we did something we called courtesies where we checked the tires after we worked on their cars, and the air hose got hooked on something, released out, smashed my face, and then went through the window. And it split open my face like right here. It's why I always have a goatee because I got a big old nasty scar. Well, anyways, like they could have just stitched me up. No, what'd they do? Bam! Prescription of opioids. I watch that stuff on the street get incredibly valuable too. When I first discovered them, they were at like 25 cents a milligram. When I stopped paying attention to the market, they were all the way up to like $2 a milligram.
Oh yeah, now they're literally like $4 a milligram.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I don't understand how this hasn't been like checked or something, because in my opinion, everybody's got their own opinion. This is my opinion. Unless you're on the deathbed, you should not get opioids. Not freely. Like if they're going to cut you open or something, fine. Dose you, do the thing, boom, deal with the pain. Because it lowers your pain tolerance anyway. Like the more you take them, it'll get to the point to where when you talk, the air going across your teeth is painful.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
it changes your brain, like literally. It neurologically and physically changes your brain because we are not born with opiate receptors, and think of pleasure receptors as like a single lane road, and when we take opiates, it changes those single lane roads to 4 lane, divided highways, and when we stop taking them, basically our brains are narrowing back down to single lane. It
So
destroys.
you're just taking traffic.
And it is painful traffic, bro.
some people go through detox so hard I'd like see them pooping themselves and vomiting everywhere and just sitting on the ground shaking like this, and it's bad news. And how are they still just giving out scripts? I don't now that I've seen what they do in that, the cure is worse than the problem. So why? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, I think that's like what we were talking about. It's kind of it's such a huge problem, and it's so devastating, and there's a lot of noise about it in the media, but like nothing stops. And so I think the conclusion that a lot of people have come to is that it's like a program, like it's a destructive program for the United States, to weaken the United States.
It honestly feels like that, and it's so susceptible to the young kids too, because they're like, you look at like cocaine, heroin, marijuana, like that's all like taboo stuff. But then one of their friends will pull out a bottle of narcs, and it's like, well, my grandma takes those. How is my grandma evil or wrong? And that's the doorway to get the young kids in too, because they're like, okay, my grandma takes like, I don't even know if Oxycontin still exists, but like Oxycontins, morphine. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she's the sweetest lady in the world. She makes me cookies. How is that an evil thing? And it allows the opiates to get their foot in the door into the younger generation, because they're just like, oh, I mean, it's a vitamin. I take vitamins all the time, and my grandma takes them, and she's a sweet lady. So what's the problem here? And then next thing you know, they're shooting them in their bathtub.
It's less threatening. It definitely changes things up. All right, I definitely want Josh to be able to get back on that conversation. We got Jonathan Picone that is joining. I'm about to bring him in. CRS, you going to stick around? You going to jump? What do you want to do?
I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right, cool. I'm bringing in Picone. What up, Picone?
Hey, CRS, I seen you had a collab with Freedom Inc., man. I appreciate your collaboration with him, man. And everybody here should join your website if you haven't told them about it. So in case there's a big cataclysm on YouTube, there's still alternative people to go listen to. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
That's what's up.
I've already accepted the fact that YouTube could disappear at any time. I got enough irons in the fire. If my channel did crash, I wouldn't be sitting as good as I am right now, but I just pull out another one.
Yeah.
And I got some of those auto key cards. I won a raffle yesterday from it. So
nice.
I'm excited to try one of them out.
Well, talk about it, not actually try it.
No, I want to rest a pen in it and see how it holds my pen. I got a perfect pen for it.
Yeah, I got one too. I got one. I'm going to try one out. Picone, let me know if you come across an SP1 carrier. All right, Josh.
Dugan's a machinist. I bet you he could just whip up an SP1 carrier in no time at all.
Bro.
I got one from, how do you tell if yours is the proper one or not?
On your back takedown pin, because your receiver closes down like this, if your carrier stops right at the point where your back takedown block is, that would be an SP1 carrier. If it goes a little bit past it, it's an AR-15 carrier. If the bottom of the carrier matches the top of the carrier with how far it's cut back, well, that's an M16 carrier. And if the complete bottom is cut off, that would be called a cuckold Colt carrier.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let's see.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. We gotta cover that later. I want to make sure we can have our guest there. But although I am very interested, Josh. So let's get back to what we were talking about. You've been working in your field for some time now. So what are some things that we should be aware of, that we should be looking for? Bring some awareness to us. Something.
Yeah, sure. So a big thing, like especially when you look at, like I said, with Amazon Web Services being, having a contract with the CIA. So Amazon right now, they're all about data, right? Whether it's what you're watching on Amazon Prime, what you're ordering, what you're telling Alexa to set a timer for, it's just data collection. And you look at a lot of the cooler, sensors that the intelligence community has. Like one of them is called Argus. Uh, uh, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but a lot of guys may know it as Gorgon Stayer. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, which I'm sure there's people listening that don't, so basically Gorgon Stayer is like a wide area motion video analysis, right? And by wide area, I mean like 100 square kilometers, right? So you're looking at a 10 by 10 click area, or maybe even bigger than that. So you're looking at I think it's like I think it's like a 62. Anyway, so it's a pretty big area, right? That this thing's looking at. When I say it's a pretty big area that it's looking at, like one day of video for this thing to analyze is 1.8 exabytes of data, right? And what the hell's an exabyte, right? An exabyte is 2 orders of 1,000 above a terabyte. So you're looking at an exabyte is 1 million terabytes. So 1.8 million terabytes of data of video this thing can record during a 1 day time. But it's so that's going back to that being a lot of data that has to get analyzed, right? So a way this was used, a way this Gorgon stare was used in Baghdad specifically, pretty effectively, was to be able to find where the car bombs, the V-bids, were coming from, right? So okay, a V-bid goes off, on Hafia Street, right? We know it goes off at 1603 local, right? It doesn't matter what time. But from there, you can go ahead and pull the Gorgon stare video, right? And you can say, okay, well I want to start at 1604. I want to go back and then see 1603. Okay, well that red. Say again.
It's like time travel.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going back in time, and you're going to say, oh, this vehicle, it came up Route Pluto. Oh, well, it turned onto Route Pluto. So you can see where the staging areas were for those V-bids. Whether it was the V-bid manufacturing places, the places where they kept the drivers before they detonated. Whatever. So you can start attacking the network that way by essentially just by hit rewind on your DVR, right? On your giant 1.8 million AT&T Uverse DVR, right? To figure that out. So so that's how we were able to successfully attack the network. At least when it came to V bids or something like that. And it didn't have to be V bids either, or car bombs. Even like a regular IED, right? You can say, okay, well, I know a route clearance patrol went down Route Irish between 02 and 06, and then an MRAP got hit with a EFP at 0715, right? Well, I know then at that point Route Irish was cleared, earlier that night. So when that route clearance patrol was completed, when did I have a 10-digit grid of where this IED went off, right? So I can go back and see, okay, well, what stopped there? Okay, it was a blue bongo truck. Well, let's chase that. Let's follow that blue bongo truck and see where it went.
Josh, you just reminded me. So you popped this quote in my head. So it's perfect because we were talking about Masood, right? So the dude from the I think it's with State Department for the Soviet-Afghan War. It would be Zbigniew. So if you guys don't know Zbigniew is like this guy. He's dead now. He died recently. But his daughter is like the girl that's on Morning Joe. So if you ever watch Morning Joe, that blonde chick that's on it, that's Zigbinew's daughter, right? The big new was in the State Department. He did the interface for like selling the CIA stingers to, I'm assuming, the Northern Alliance in the Soviet Afghan war. So there's a famous clip of him standing there going like, "You'll get your land back because God is on your side and you're right." You know, it's like this famous clip. But he had this quote that is like a fascinating quote that I heard it a long time ago, and it always made me like scratch my head until I guess like the past decade it started making sense. But his quote was, "It used to be easier to kill 1 million people, but now, like in the future, it's easier to lie to 1 million people." And it always it like really confused me at first because I always thought like, well, it seems like it'd be really hard to lie to 1 million people, but it seems even harder to kill 1 million people. But now with the scope of technology, it makes perfect sense. One of the things that I was thinking about, that it was almost like an afterthought after deployment, but in talking to guys, we definitely see it. So like in theater, so I was in a Navy sector, and we had lots of VBIDs, lots of sniper attacks, and mortar attacks and stuff like that. But one of the things that would happen would be, you through the your military intelligence, they would pass down to the unit level like compilation videos of attacks on like people. And sometimes they would be units that would be in our area that were like fairly fresh, like within like 6 months. So it'd be like you'd see a like a sniper attack or a multi IED attack where an IED would go off, and then you'd have like the response element would come, and then there'd be like a primary detonation that would like kill everybody, like the entire response, unit. And we would like, when we watch these things, it would just be like stone cold silent there, where everybody would just be like, "Oh fuck," But the like going back now that I look at it now, especially after when we were there, it was like Al Qaeda in Iraq, AQIZ, and they were like this like mystical force that you would never find. You would always you would kick open doors and shoot people that would shoot at you, and they'd usually be like somewhat underarmed. Like sometimes they would have, they would have heavy shit, like they would have like lots of HE, lots of artillery and like mortars and PKMs and stuff, but they just wouldn't be like this. It was never like this badass force that we were always, hoping to find. And then, like over time, we kind of got to the point where I think, like, particularly post deployment, like I think we saw it in the deployment, but it was just too surreal to wrap our heads around until we were out of service, like, rotated back to the world, working regular jobs, thinking about like what happened, or like every day. We got to the conclusion that, like, between the videos that were shown and like the stories and stuff, like Juba the sniper, and all this, Juba the sniper is this supposedly an Iranian sniper. That should be a first clue right there, an Iranian sniper. Supposedly like some Iranian sniper. Sometimes they talk about being a woman that's like supposed to be shooting all these guys, and then coalition forces and like getting a high kill count. And then you would see like videos that were supposed to be Juba and stuff. But after the fact, like we're like thinking about it, and post deployment, you see like the ISIS execution videos, and then you start to realize like, okay, there was like Al Qaeda and Taliban, and there's like ISIS, and then there's probably like 2 or 3 other ones that I'm forgetting in between. But the only difference is that they put a little watermark in the corner of the video, so it's like there'll be like a little flag, and it's like, oh, that's the flag. That's the flag right up there. That's the flag, the ISIS flag or whatever. And then it's like, if it's not there, it's like a really shitty video. And that's like what they all have in common. And we started to talk amongst ourselves the assumption that like these videos are not made by the people that we're fighting, because the people that we would shoot, like when we would go into a house that is clearly like not a civilized house, it's like a bunch of dudes that are there to party, and then we go in there and party, and then we clean it up. They're not like these guys are not capable of operating a video camera, let alone stabilizing it and like recording at like 300 meters impacts on people's Keplars and shit. Like it's just non-existent. And you don't think about that. Like as a civilian, people don't think about that shit. They just see the video and they're just like, that's the bad guy. You know, they're bad. Right? They fucking hate America. But it's like once you actually deal with it for a while and you look at it and you're like, we're trying to fucking kill these guys and we can't fucking find them. And our intelligence is always like half-assed and like nobody knows what the fuck is going on. And we're killing a lot of like poor people, you know? And then you start looking at it and you go, these videos, like I'm getting the feeling these videos are not made by Al Qaeda. These are made by somebody else, and then they're showing them to us so that we're like, that's Al Qaeda. You know what I mean? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, and it's a tough pill to swallow too, because I've thought about that as myself. Like if somebody did what would you even call it? A negative publicity on me, I would most definitely look like a bad guy. And I consider myself a good guy.
Yeah, I think
you get what I'm saying though. Like it's another element that is not Al Qaeda, that is not in the battlefield, that is like shooting us and filming it, and then publishing it online so that we see it, so that Americans see it, so that the war continues.
You know, it took me almost a week to figure out how to upload my first YouTube video. So they must be pretty technologically advanced.
Right? But that's not, I'll tell you what, like, I always think back of like, when I was working with the Iraqi militia, and we would have like, you know, like I always ruled like PAS 13 because I was like, I mean, it's a football, but like back in the day in Iraq, it was pretty, you know, it worked. So you'd have the PAS 13 thermal optic, you know, and I would get paired up with like Iraqi militia. And I can remember like showing it to those guys on the roofs and then just being like, you know, just like coming to the realization, observing them that like not only they have no technological concept of like thermal or like what is going on with it, but they also don't have like, you know, they don't even understand germs or gravity or fucking like any of the things that are, you know, seem intuitive for people to like understand as a formal system. Like they don't have time for that, and they don't, you know, so that it's not, I mean, that's not everybody. I'm not talking about all Iraqis. I just mean like the people that are in the dirt fighting and stuff. Like they're not the widespread, you know, use of like cameras for making like snuff films of soldiers and shit. It like after the fact, it really, especially when the ISIS video, like when the ISIS execution videos came out, like I saw one time, I watched it. Has anybody ever seen the ISIS Kill House execution video where they're like hanging people up like meat and like cutting their necks and shit?
No,
I saw
seen that one.
It's fucking hardcore. It'll fucking leave an impression. But like after I saw that one, there was a part in there where like, you know, it's really hard to watch. But there was a part in there where like I paused it and like went back and forth and I could see CG. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that people aren't getting killed. Like I believe that people are getting killed in the videos. At least if they're not, if it's completely fake, then it's so good that like there's no discerning reality from their CG. But what I'm saying is that they're adding CG. So there's like CG blood added to the real blood to make it more bloody. And then it like when I saw that, it made me stop and go like, why would you add CG blood? And the only motive for it is that like this is not ISIS. This is not like there is no ISIS. This is fucking people with access to high speed CG that are like hiring people to kill people and film it and then like making it as violent as possible and then releasing it through snuff websites for the American population to see so that they're disgusted and angered by the ISIS thing that they keep hearing on Fox News and CNN.
So I had the with what I do professionally, every now and then I end up in other people's homes, and Josh and I actually spoke about this. And Josh, I know you said that you know you can't really touch on conspiracies, so you know you can not reply if you desire. But I was walking through this woman's home, and I start seeing like her wall is literally just covered. Every square inch is covered with like awards and like crocheting awards and all this. And then we get up to the second floor with her office, and I start seeing all these acknowledgments from psyops. And I was like, oh my God, like you worked psychological operations. And she said, yeah. And basically we have this huge conversation about, psyops and how they work. And she had said, basically there's still like hundreds of different levels to it, but essentially, what we're talking about now is propaganda, and there's different levels to it, and they call it like white, gray, black. But she had said essentially what propaganda is or what psyops is not only being able to control the outcome, it's being able to befriend your target, manipulate your target, win the heart of your target, and not only manipulate the outcome, you know exactly their behavior and what they're going to do and when they're going to do it and how they're going to react and who they're going to tell, and everything because you have designed it. And he shared with me some of the three different types of psyops. Josh, are you able to talk about that based on what Dugan shared?
Yeah, sure. So let me kind of caveat this. And if any psyopers are listening now or in the comment section or something like that, 90% of y'all suck and it's not your fault. Okay? The 10% of y'all that are good are amazing. But the vast majority of y'all suck, but it's not your fault. Okay? If you look at use of PAPOC, right? U.S. Army's Civil Affairs and Civil Affairs and Psychological Command, right? It's pretty much all in the Army Reserves. There are a couple pods, Psychological Operations groups out of Bragg that are active, and I mean those guys just do their job and practice on their job. Maybe not every day because you have mandatory here's how you treat the new trainees in your unit training and stuff like that. But when you only have 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year to train to be proficient at something, it's very hard to be proficient at something. I mean, and I understand that. With that said, the good psyoppers, and there's a lot of them in the reserves. It's not just the guys at Fort Bragg. Y'all, they're damn good, and they really understand it. So, what Dark was kind of talking about, as far as the three different types of psyop, the first thing you want to do when you're doing a psyop campaign or a psyop product or a product in support of a campaign is identify who your target audience is, right? It's called target audience analysis, your TAA. And it's different than like tactical assembly area that maneuver guys use, right? So so you do your target audience analysis. So who do I want to influence, right? Who do I want to social engineer? Who do I want to drive their behavior? And then obviously the more you know about about that culture, about that tribe, about that city where those people live, that town, that village, whatever, all that information, helps make an effective psyop product. There's a really good example of a bad psyop product from Afghanistan that I saw one time, and it was handbills that were being given out, and they were in Dari. So Dari is kind of like Farsi as far as the language goes. It's basically kind of a dialect of Farsi. Anyways, but they're giving out Dari, handbills like leaflets, right? Leaflets are actually dropped from a plane. Handbills are actually distributed hand to hand. So they're distributing, handbills written in Dari in a Pashtun village where there's like a 10% literacy rate anyways. Like these people are just wiping their ass with it if they're even doing that, right? Like you're just creating litter in their village. Like it's number one, none of them, like only 10% can read, and you're not even you're not even doing it in the right language. So the target audience analysis on that village was obviously completely wrong, or it wasn't done well. So when you're looking at psyop, right, and or propaganda, there's a method called SCAN, SCANE, to kind of evaluate, that psyop product. So, or propaganda, whatever you want to call it. Officially, the United States does not do propaganda. We only do psyop products. It's the enemy that does propaganda, whatever. Anyways, so the S.
Hey, John, Josh, all this stuff is like especially like military psyops, like the conventional stuff is I mean, it's kind of like a couple magnitudes behind what's going on in the United States, right? I mean,
No, totally. Yeah, we are, and you can actually look up the latest PSYOP manual, the actual the latest NATO one, and it's a fucking joke, man. I'm trying not to use profanity.
Hey, Josh, I got a
Get an extra
question.
once.
Is a lot of the PSYOP units using influencers on YouTube?
Well, that would be something that would be using PSYOP on U.S. troops, which on U.S. personnel, which legally they cannot.
yeah.
Now,
The lady told me too.
I know
Different-
Obama did have a big meeting where he had like Vsauce and a bunch of other people there to learn how to push an idea better.
Well, just to be clear, so what Josh is talking about like the formal. He's talking about like the everything from an MOS in a PSYOPs field all the way up to where you get crossover into IC or like like intelligence community, like the cross, like up to including the crossover there. The social engineering that's done on America is like next level. Like we're talking like a level of social engineering that is accomplished only because everybody's walking around assuming that the nameplates that we're all wearing, like I'm an American, I work at Jiffy Lube, I do the, we look at everything like that. This is the president. He's loves America. He's the president of the United States. This is the we look at everything like that. International social engineering works on that substrate where they go like, this is what everybody sees, and this is who we are. So we never see that, and then we just go around like behind the scenes. So it's a completely different thing that is not like military. Like military psyops is not I mean, who knows how they're going to integrate it in the future, but at this point it's not high, it's too high risk to have somebody that isn't born into that field to be like executing.
Hey, dude, do you think the data analysis or data storage they're doing on every individual has to be stored in some type of high-tech supercomputer or a whiz-bang computer that's AI intelligence to a next level?
Fuck yeah. I mean, what do you think what do you think the giant server farms are? You know what I mean? Like when you drive across California or Arizona, or I mean, fuck, they're everywhere, right? You got them out in Virginia, don't you, Dark?
Dude, I have hundreds. So they had this in this area that that's a few counties over. Basically, it was advertised as, we're going to build an 88-acre trade center with shopping and entertainment, and the metro's going to be built out to extend out there, and it's going to increase home value. To this day, that was 5 or 6 years ago, to this day, the only thing they have is, now I understand they do the shit that has clearance first before they build all the other shit, but 6 years later, all we have is a major highway with data centers all the way down, like terrifyingly large data centers.
Which is crazy, because you would think that with the way, I mean, people are still delusional in the United States, where they think it's fucking like 1989 here, and are just like, everything's great. You would think that people would like be like, what are these giant fucking boxes? Let me see them. Let's shake
with
out the
no
box.
windows, with armed guards, with fucking.
There's no accountability. There's no, like, nobody even gives up. Nobody's even like sending an email to their senator like, can we look what's in the box?
Here's
like,
why. Here's why. The same thing that Matt said about not having bills in his wallet, right? Convenience. The same thing about me being, this person with this profession, with this income, with this, we have this routine. We have,
inundation.
Yeah.
Everything occupied, like all sensory perception fully occupied, to where you sense what is presented. like
You're
through the channel,
programmed.
proper presentation.
You're
Oh, I'm
fucking
very
programmed.
I'm very aware they spy on me all the time. My little peaceful protest, I just take a picture of my junk with my phone like once a week. This way they gotta see my dick if they're gonna look at everything else. It's just the way it is.
Hey, have any of you guys ever noticed? I know I've researched some of this targeted individual stuff, and I used to think it was just hysteria or paranoia, but I've seen some sketch activity of people in POVs lately around or just shopping, and people just do weird stuff. And I'm telling you, I think there might be something to it because there's sometimes I've seen some strange behavior in a vehicle or walking around me at a store. It just doesn't seem normal.
You said, I'm sorry,
What do you mean?
what was the acronym?
Targeted individual, TIs.
Explain.
You're talking about like
Yeah.
Pretty much what targeted individual is anybody who's on this kind of content where we're trying to bring forth truth and awaken people. You start hitting on hot topics. They use they use individuals to harass or to pressure you or to distress you.
Like gang stalking and gaslighting and shit like that?
Yeah, they do stuff like that. And I've seen some weird behavior in vehicles with government plates.
Like,
Yeah, but you also have to understand we have the ability to build connections even where there's not. For all you know, that could have not have been a targeted individual. It's just some chick I'm attracted to, so I'm getting all weird around her and circling a bunch. But
yeah,
I mean, yes, there is a possibility there's agents following specific people, or there's a possibility that you built your connection in your head because that's what you want to see.
Right. That's why I said that it could be paranoia too, so I don't want to indulge too much in it, but would it be too far off if Josh is here that they could have people be civilians, live near down the road and observe you or make you get into stress or gaslight you?
Well, yeah. So you're getting into something which I kind of wanted to kind of end, or not kind of. I didn't want to end it with, but anyways. So like that would be, conducting. Number one, the collection. Would be, say if you had NSA, CIA, DIA, NRO, whatever. FBI can legally collect on U.S. personnel, on U.S. citizens or even anyone assumed to be U.S. So even if you're like from, I don't know, Oman, but you have a U.S. cell phone, but with a U.S. cell phone number, you still have that protection of if you want to call it that, of only the FBI can collect on you. So there's a lot of legal safeguards that are put in place, even for inadvertent collection, where the intelligence community uh, um, should not be collecting on Americans. And I know we're all kind of laughing and har and shit like that, but so here's the deal: like the FBI has that mission, like the, everyone that's looking externally, so in whether it's Afghan, whether it's supporting boots on the ground wherever they are, right, wherever they ship me, right, or if it's looking at trying to get like China's like underground facilities, like trying to identify those, like all that's most of what your intelligence community is supposed to be geared towards. So any type of target individual stuff. Number one, any collection that's going on any American should be being done by the FBI. It shouldn't be being done by me or any of my peers, right? And that's where, like, and the same thing with psyops, right? With the psyop, right? Like that should not be the U.S. should not be. And the thing is, like, USACPOC, U.S. Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command, right? They're just. I'm just speaking from the Army standpoint. We don't have that ability to do cool like stuff like that. But I mean, and I'm just saying that there's the legal restraints there. Plus, there's just not the tradecraft that exists. And because of that, and the reason we don't is because going back to that target audience analysis, if I knew John Doe, right? John Doe's my target. I want to do stuff to make him uncomfortable, right? So, going back to that big data thing, right? Knowing that, hey, this guy wakes up around 5:20, 5:30 every morning. Sometimes he gets snooze, right? He gets a workout in his, somewhere in his house. I know, and I know this because he sets an alarm on his cell phone. He hops on his Peloton and goes for a ride, right? All this shit's logged, right? And then he gets a workout in. He always puts in his address to work, even though he knows the fucking way to work because he drives there every day, but just for traffic awareness, right? So, going back to all that information being like, oh, he always goes out and watches Monday Night Football with the boys on Monday night, right? Because we had the credit card log, from that one bar, right? So all that stuff's in there, so you can develop a pattern of life on an individual, and then at that point, you'd be able to do things to basically make that individual comfortable. Like,
I got the perfect story. The perfect story. Have I ever told you the
Your audio's jacked, dude. It's muffled.
audio's fucked up? How about now?
Keep going.
Is it better? Is it getting better? Audio
No,
better?
it's awful.
Reception's fucked up. It's
Well, I was
awful?
thinking in terms of
There you
logistics, anyways. What could you possibly get from me that you couldn't get from my cell phone by paying
Right.
somebody like $80K a year to put in a house, which has a cost to it, fuel to follow me around, like the cost and logistics behind putting people on me? What could you possibly gain over this? So I'd really have to be a targeted person to have people harass me.
Well, think of it like this too. It's not that necessarily like yeah, you have all that surveillance and that costs man hours, equipment hours, all that stuff. But what they're really trying with something like in a situation like that, going back to psychological operations, you're trying to have an effect, right? So you want to make someone feel like they're choosing something when they really you kind of already connected the fucking dots for them, and they're doing something not because they're being forced to, but because they think they're choosing to do it. But surreptitiously, everything aligned to do it, right? Like and I'm thinking for like non-malicious purposes, going back to Megacorp, Amazon, Facebook, whatever. They see I post on Instagram like hashtag iced coffee so great, hashtag mocha vente latte so great. Well, then all of a sudden I wonder why like Facebook's telling me that like there's a new coffee shop in the area that you should really go check out and shit like that. That's the type of targeted individual stuff that's being used now in the United States, and that's being done by whether it's Alphabet, Facebook, Amazon. We'll just call them like I said, let's call them megacorp. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, and even if you have a monopoly, antitrust lawsuit come in and bust them up like what happened to Microsoft. There'll be something rise from the ashes, and take its place. I mean, and we've seen that. I mean, so it's never going to stop, especially now when data is essentially the product, right? The like Facebook, for example, is a great is great that you are the product. What you post on Facebook, everything you do on Facebook, that's the product. Like, what's Facebook producing? I mean, some type of like software interface and stuff like that. Okay, but what are they selling? Right, they're selling advertising, and but they're doing it through data. Right, they're able to do that by saying, hey, I have this product. Right, we'll call it I don't know widgets for men. It doesn't matter what the product is, right? So widgets for men, right? And I only want to market this towards manly men, right? And then you can see, and then you can go back and say, okay, I want males from the 20 to 40 demographic. Well, on your Facebook account, you already put your gender on there, you already put your age on there, and all that stuff. So, like that way, they can do that targeted advertising. So when you're looking for that new man widget, right? They already know, like, hey, I'm not displaying advertising for a man widget to that 80-year-old woman who likes pictures of cats and her grandkids, and that's all she does on Facebook, right? So it's all social engineering, but right now it's all driven towards just consumeristic behavior. but they have the data to do more with it. So, like, making these.
The highest intent. Like what is the highest intent? That's what you're saying. Like you got to think of the capability of like, the highest intent.
Right. I mean, when it comes to the amount of data that's being collected, like I'm not necessarily worried about the server farms in the DC capital region as much as I am. Well, I say that I think Amazon headquarters too was picked for DC or the Nova or something like that. So
Yeah, it's Arlington.
yeah. So. Yeah, so while not all of them, like I said, like I mean, while I'm not necessarily worried about like those server farms, I mean, they do have a potential for malicious use, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, there's a process called the IC whistleblower process and system. So if hey, I feel like an intelligence oversight, right? So if I'm collecting on an American, or if there is a inadvertently or advertently, that there's a process in where someone could say, hey, this is collecting on an American. It shouldn't be being done right now, right? And we've and when we've gotten this training, I thought like, man, I'm never going to do that. Like, I know what I look at. I'm never going to have an American. And then a guy came up, and it was like, okay, let's start discussing if this person meets the criteria for an American. And and it had to deal with some other stuff, that was specific about the guy. The guy was not born here. He wasn't even living here. There was just other things, and that's all I want to say about that, right? So there is a process in place that prevents that's supposed to prevent inadvertent collection. But but looking at some of my peers and coworkers, almost wonder like, hey, are you gonna like if they were told to collect on Americans, would they, or would they say, fuck no, that's not right, right? I mean, and not just fuck no, but fuck no, and here's my fucking papers, I'm done, right? I mean, and then, uh, you know, there's something, I mean, obviously no one's going to say that, that they're like, oh yeah, I'd gladly collect on an American, because we all know the seriousness of intelligence oversight, and all that stuff, or at least we say we do, but, I also have conversations with people privately, and
The bottom line
and
is,
I know we're concerned about it.
yes, the bottom line is that let's say that it was nefarious. There's not shit that any Americans can do about it. You know what I mean? There's no oversight. There's no ability to audit. And then you can imagine with the way that things are now, especially since the psyche of America has been split. Like you have to look at anybody, regardless of the formal arrangement of whatever type of intelligence service. The nefarious stuff is really, private stuff. But if it transitioned into a place where they're using, conventional government services to, go domestic, you have to you have to imagine that the people that are taking, that's their means of living. They're gonna have to, if they say you got to do this, then it's like they have to make a choice on the spot that nobody knows about to either have a job or not, and that's kind of the bottom line. But Cone, you were asking about you were asking about people watching and shit. So I have this crazy story. I think I told it about a year ago, but there wasn't that many people listening. So when I got back stateside, I worked at a gun store with this dude that was going to college for international business, and he was actually a Mason, which is just.
That's right.
Do you know this story?
Oh, my bad. I thought I was muted. Yeah, you told me the story. It's fucking terrifying. Sorry.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
It is. I like the story. I think it's pretty good. I enjoy telling it. So this dude was going to school for business. He works with me at the gun store. He's a Marine vet, and so he's like at the campus, at whatever, some fucking school here. And then he has the Zionist Organization of America is doing, like regular organizational meetings at the school facilities. So they're like out there passing out flyers and stuff. So he got stopped for one of the flyers. So he had one of the flyers and he showed up to work and he's like, dude, I got this ZOA flyer here. And I was like, ZOA? I was like, Zionist Organization. So I look him up. So ZOA is, they got pulled off of the espionage list like in the last couple of decades. So they like lobbied. They were on the espionage list since the 60s. And then they got pulled off of it, like through diplomacy. It is strange that they're operating at campuses, but that's what they're doing. So anyway, he was like, I did the dumbest thing I've ever done, which was like this guy, my buddy, being like, "Hey, you want to go check this out?" And I was like, "Yes, let's go." Which is the wrong thing to do. Never do this. Like no matter what your gut tells you, it's always going to go bad. It's never going to go right. So I go to this ZOA meeting on the campus with this guy. Now the way that I'm going. So like I'm like rotated back, from the military at this point, and for a few years. And so like I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm thinking of like Saved by the Bell. Everybody's mid-20s, early 30s. That's like what school is, like. That's what I'm thinking in like subconsciously in my head. I'm thinking I'm just going to walk in here. It's no big deal. I'm just going to sit on the back. It's going to be a giant amphitheater with like dark lighting. I'm going to sit in the back, fucking, see, just hang out, check it out, no big deal. So we walk into this thing, turn, like it's like a right-hand turn to go in. You get in. It's like, I don't know, 100 seats max. It is like a compact ass old, like, schoolhouse classroom type setup. It's nothing but like yarmulkes from shore to shore, right? And then like not only that, it's nothing but like kids that are, they look like my son, like they're very young, right? And so like I'm standing out like a sore thumb with this giant fucking beard. Me and my buddy have like these giant beards and we're like walking in there. We don't have any yarmulkes. So like we're standing out. So we're like, we get in there, we're like, oh man, I don't, and then it's like if we turn around, it's like even worse than if we like just like squeeze through uncomfortably and find a seat. So we're like, okay, we'll just like sit up here in the corner. So we go up there and sit in the corner, right? And we're just like at this point, we're just like so embarrassed. We're just like we just want to get out of here, but we don't want to make it too awkward. We don't want the like Jews to think that we don't like the Jews or whatever. So we'll just like sit down here or whatever. So they start the presentation. The speaker is I can't remember the guy's name. The dude, I looked him up. So the dude is from the like Israeli military and the Israeli like high cabinet for the Israeli government, like giving a talk at the school. So the dude that's giving the talk is not like, I mean, he's like an Israeli, but he's not like a religious Jew or something like that. This is just like some guy that looks like anybody else. And he's wearing like a button-up shirt and he's like really sweaty when he starts. So he's like, perspirating profusely. Like it's uncomfortable to watch, to witness. But he's like, so he starts doing his PowerPoint. And then we're sitting there like half focused on the PowerPoint, half like just nobody look at us, like it's no big deal, And at some point,
was he perspirating because he saw you guys there?
Huh?
Was he perspirating because he saw you guys there?
Well, I'm getting to that. So at some point in this fucking terrible PowerPoint presentation, it becomes beyond obvious that this guy made this PowerPoint presentation like on the plane ride from Israel. So like this dude like flew over, is doing like a circuit at ZOA conferences across the United States, stopping off at all the colleges. And he just like hammered out this PowerPoint, which is just basically like, I mean, it's just nothing but like stereotypes of like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Look, and the Palestinians bomb us here and they bomb us here and blah, blah, blah. And you got to keep in mind, he's talking to an entire Jewish audience. So like the people here don't need any convincing about like how, like it's all great. Like Israel is great and everybody's just trying to destroy you. Like they don't need that. Right. So this PowerPoint is like fluff. So he just made the PowerPoint thinking that like nobody fucking comes to these things except for Jews and then us, right? So like we come in here and we're like we're just sticking out like fucking sore thumbs, and the dude starts getting fucking super nervous, especially when he gets halfway through the PowerPoint and he's like, oh shit, I can't believe I made these fucking slides. And he's like having to hammer through them. And he's like, he's recalling all these silly ass slides that he made that don't even make any fucking sense, but they're just there as like a time filler. So you can say, check the box and say, yeah, I went and did the, presentation to the school, right? So anyway, at about this time, the dude starts like fucking up his presentation because he's so nervous and starts like skipping words and shit. The staff at the school, who are like adults that are facilitating the whole thing, they start like feeling that the guy is like getting nervous and skipping up. So they start pulling out cell phones and aiming cell phones at me and the other guy that are like stuck in the fucking like bottom row, two rows up, like quarter off the side. We're like, we can't get out. We got like kids all over and can't just like hop up and leave. They start pulling out cell phones and like aiming. They act at first, they're like, we're just taking a picture. Me and my buddy and my other buddy, we're all taking pictures of the whole classroom because we're so excited for this great presentation. That's like what they're trying to do. But they're fucking starting to sweat too because they're like freaked out. They're like, are they going to see that we're trying to take pictures of them? Anyway, it's dead obvious they're trying to take pictures of us. So we're like, now at this point, we're like, oh fuck, are they doing like biometrics? Like, man, we got to get the fuck out of here. But we can't leave because of the physical location. Like, we can't, unless we just like jump up and start climbing over knees. Like, we are not going to get out of here. The lights are bright. There's no darkness whatsoever. We stand out like sore thumbs. He gets through the PowerPoint presentation painfully. We finally like, we give up with our hands because it's so long. We're like, all right, they're just going to get fucking pictures. So we're just like, cheese, they get pictures of us. So like we get out of there. It is all scorn. It is just like every eye in the room is just like, you fucked up the fucking cover. So we get out of there. We're like, that was really uncomfortable. We have like a huddle and we're like, okay, well, what the fuck do we do about that? So we came up with the idea, which is the second dumbest thing I've ever done, where we're like, okay, we're going to contact, like we basically had a fucking in-depth conversation where like these guys, I'm not gonna bore you with the details, but we basically come to the conclusion that these guys are gonna be figuring out who the fuck we are. The dude that I'm there with is a private military contractor, and he does like work overseas, like in China and shit. So he's like international. So we're like, so I'm like, he's like, fuck man, I'm like, I don't know, I might have to get like a different line of work, because he's like freaked out about this thing. So we're like, okay, this is what we'll do. We're gonna call the FBI. And we're going to say, because this is like an Israeli nationalist undeclared that is working for the Israeli government, and they're coming in here and doing this, we're going to call the FBI and put in like a dummy tip so that then it gets circulated in the system that it's like a dummy tip. So that then when they access the system from whatever backdoor they have or their contacts or whatever, they'll see that we're just a bunch of dummies and we're not like government service or something. Because what they're sweating about is that they think that we're like fucking spooks. You see what I'm saying? So like, they don't know that we're just jackasses that just wandered in there. They're thinking that we're from fucking like, we're some fucking holdouts from the government that still believe in the United States and that we're like there to fucking like shoot them or something after the presentation or whatever. So we're like, okay, we'll put in a dummy tip to FBI and say, we saw this and we'll just, give them the dumb version. And then they'll read it and they'll be like, okay, these guys don't know what the fuck's going on. And so we did that. The feds, first of all, the feds around here, we went through local feds in the state. They fucking did not want to help. Like they were extremely, like it was uncomfortable on the phone calling this tip in, first of all, talking to them. They didn't want to meet. We offered to like meet if they wanted to or whatever. We're just basically trying to say like, we're not bad guys, right? They're like not having it. They don't want to take a report. They do so like against their wishes. They get through with the fucking shit. Within 24 hours, I'm at the gun store working a shift, and this is not like, this gun store is now like slightly off the map. It's not like this is not like in a city or something like that. A dude, the security element from the fucking campus that was at this thing, comes into the fucking gun store 24 hours later. and I was in the back, and I saw there's like one-way glass on the front of the store, and I see the motherfucker get out of his car, and like I'm like feeling like I'm on acid. I'm like, is that the fucking guy? And like, oh shit, that's the guy. So I'm like, I like get behind the employee door, and I've got a rifle, and I'm like, am I gonna shoot this guy? Because it's like a tense moment, you know, like there's no fucking, you know, like I have no idea what is going on. You know what I mean? Like no clue at all. So this guy comes in, walks painfully slow to like the counter. There's a gal that's working there that has no idea what's going on. Like I'm not telling her this stuff, right? So she has no clue. I'm like behind the wall with like a fucking rifle, like ready to have a little CQB battle here. The having no idea what's going on. The guy comes and like walks really slowly and like peeks around a corner and sees me in the back room and smiles at me. And I was like, oh, you motherfucker. And then he leaves. I immediately got on the phone with FBI, with the agent that I talked to. And I was like, you motherfuckers, like I told you this fucking guy comes in. He's like, whoa, what's going on? And I'm like, you fucking told this guy that? And they're like, wait. We didn't say anything to anybody. And I was like, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. He's like, yeah, we wouldn't do that because of exactly this reason. Because if we talked to somebody, if we went and like talked to somebody and said like, were you having a international secret meeting or something, then you get retaliation. So like we don't do this, you know. And then I'm just like processing the whole thing in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, it's the perfect epitome. So like this, I don't know what happened, right? There's no way that I can know. What I speculate is that, you know, this guy had access to the fucking feds. Like you see what I'm saying? Like he had access to the whole thing, and it worked. Like what we did worked in terms of there was a dummy, but maybe he didn't buy it, or possibly they could have identified us through biometrics and then figured out where we're working and come in. But
even if they just, you know, followed you out, they tailed you, got your plates, had somebody on local.
They couldn't have tailed us because we used evasive. Like we considered that when we left. So like we walked out and like split on foot, and it was the night. And
what about your basic friend? Was he like some lead? He got that information from somebody, so
well,
probably go back to him.
So in that particular instance, like, you know, I got a couple tricks up my sleeve. So I doxed the guy, and I know that he's actually law enforcement. He's in a police department in the state. And he's active law enforcement, but he was at the, like I have this thing where it's like, if I see somebody's face, I never forget somebody's face. So this guy was at the school as the security element for, it was through Chabad Lubavitch. So like the Chabad office at the school had a police officer, a Jewish police officer, as a part of the security element for Chabad. And then they had Israeli, you know, government, you know, going through schools using it as cover for whatever the fuck they're doing. And you know, this was like a situation where he either like ID'd us from imagery from the photos that they took, which wouldn't be that good. Like they wouldn't be that good at photos. And I don't like, especially at that time, I didn't have any photos. Like no photos of me since the fucking internet came out. You know what I mean? And this would have been like early CarnaCon too. So it's not like, you know, it'd be really difficult. So it's like that makes me lean towards. I lean towards like they're accessing the fucking FBI, you know, files somehow. I mean, I don't know how that works. Or they have a mole that is just like sitting there watching it like pop-ups, you know. It's just
or
like,
the FBI lied to you and they're like, hey, is this going bothering you?
Yeah, exactly. or the feds are literally like they're in the fucking closet at the Chabad Lubavitch. Yeah, one of those three things. But something occurred because the dude fucking showed up. So it's like, you know, no matter what you tell me, no matter what the feds tell me, like there is something very wrong here. But this is kind of like a hyped up story that I thought about that kind of gives the it kind of lays out like the dividing lines of like who's got the, you know, legal restriction and where their legal restriction lies in formality versus like the in between in the aspect of like intimidation and stalking and stuff.
Your gun store story makes me want to tell one, and my ADHD is making me always my head's gonna explode. But
Okay.
so the other day, like not even a week ago, somebody comes into the shop and I'm like, hey, do you want to see anything behind the counter? They're like, I want to see everything in the till. Like my mouth just dropped. I'm like, you really want to go down that road? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I was just joking. That made my heart flutter. I thought I was actually gonna have to throw down on this guy. Also, I had a question too. How the hell did you do your editing that long ago? Because I went through your old videos again, and you're so far advanced to where we all were on YouTube. Was it an accident? Are you some sort of fucking cyborg? Did you have a professional editing company do it for you?
I just edit very slowly. You know what I mean? Like I usually I edit way more meticulously than other people. But I used to do it for a job. So I used to do editing for commercials and stuff.
Like what kind of commercials?
Like mostly like gun stuff, like Bass
Well, I mean,
Pro, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, like high end stuff like Kraft's mac and cheese, or are we talking a commercial for like Debbie Does Dallas?
No, like commercial video for like documentary stuff and advertising, but not like consumer television. Just like for projects for companies, But I just the only difference that I find between the way that I edit and other people edit is that I go very slow and I go like way slower than normal people go, and I go back and forth a lot. Like in the editing reel, I'm like going back, taking a section in isolation and watching it, and that's really the only difference.
That does make sense because I'll typically do my editing in about a half an hour, and then like after the video drops, I'll be watching it like live, and I'll be like, oh, I kind of wish I would have did that a little bit different or something like that.
I would typically on a bit, like if it was a big project where it was something complex that I had to convey with editing, like it has to be really smooth, like I'll spend 100 hours.
I did way back when my computer was so slow I didn't have a choice, but actual like work hours for me, it's not very long.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you like it. It's just, a lot of slow editing.
I might try to do a hero video, but damn it, every time I put one up, it gets demonetized so no one ever sees it. Like I just did like this video game spoof thing and demonetized. It's got like 9,000 views. I'm like, that was like 20 hours of editing down the shitter.
That's the worst.
Honestly, this is all like what we do, all high speed, low drag, no editing, no nothing. Like, we've had me nodding out, we've had Cliff, we had Light drunk, we had like, we've done it all, man. And, just got to throw it out there, get the message out.
It's refreshing. It's great.
Yeah. Joshy, anything else, any information that you want to end on, or any steps that we can take to avoid, like, I mean, I hear all the time about people like opening up their phones, disabling their mics and their GPS, only using headsets with mics to talk. Like, what steps can we take to avoid this, or are we just doomed?
Well, I guess there's good and bad news, right? The good news is that you don't have to use your cell phone, right? And there's ways to make it safe. There's, obviously anything that advertises point-to-point encryption is good, or two-factor authentication is good. When it comes to that, when it comes to the encryption. That being said, you got to ask yourself the question, especially when it comes to encryption, who owns those keys? Like a really good, like WhatsApp was kind of for messaging, kind of the standard on secured messaging, and then Facebook bought them, right? It's like, well, why? Like, why does Facebook need to buy a messenger? A messaging app, and at first I thought, oh, they're just trying to purchase the encryption capability, and then the more and more I think about it, and knowing what like Facebook does, well, they're purchasing the data, right? They want to know that area code 808-555-1212 texted area code 312-776 whatever and said this stuff, right? So it's there's still, I think a good way to think of it is there's things you can do to protect your data, but if you're really worried about someone collecting your data, using stuff like Tor, a VPN, encrypted emails, stuff like that, that may actually raise a bigger red flag than just being smart. Like,
Just
I agree.
blending into the woodwork.
I don't like that stuff. That like all the encrypted stuff, I think is a real false sense of security. I think behavioral shit is more effective.
yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yeah, change your behavior, right? And then even so, you mentioned and Dark, you mentioned like only using like the limited functions on your cell phone, right? Like, okay, your cell phone is still talking, it's still communicating with the tower, right? When even if it's turned off, right? As long as there's a battery in it, and you can look at most modern phones, like the latest smartphones, the Galaxies and the iPhones, have a battery that you can't take out. That phone, even when it's off, like you powered it off, it's still communicating. It's still saying, "Hey, I can see this Wi-Fi signal. I can see I'm pinging off this tower and stuff like that." It's still. And if you don't believe me, right? Like think of it like this. Um, Put like it doesn't matter if it's DeWalt, Craftsman, Ryobi. It doesn't matter. Like your like power drill cordless battery, right? You can fill that battery all the way up on the charger and then put it in the closet and then maybe not use it for 3 weeks and then like whoa, you still have a full battery, right? I mean, like pretty much. There's going to be some power drain from there while it's in storage, but it's still going to be a pretty full battery.
Yeah.
If you cut your cell phone off for 3 months, you're not going to be able to fire it up and have a full battery. It's still using power, to communicate, when that's going on. So using stuff like a Faraday bag, and you can make those out of, like say, the heavy duty, the thicker, like aluminum foil, duct tape, and Ziploc bags. Those
Will
are
that
really
work?
easy to make.
So I heard that it needed to be like thicker steel. Like, would that actually work?
No, you probably, and I want to experiment with this more, but you probably just want to put a layer. Probably just want to put a layer between there. So imagine like, well, we'll put it metal bag, zip, cloth bag, button, and then another metal bag or metal mesh bag, right? Because at that point you have 2 layers of metal. And the signal stuff is huge, right? Like you can I'm just thinking what's in my house right now that emits a signal, right? Uh, um, uh, Me and my wife's cell phones, kids' iPad, hell, all the DVR, all the receivers for our uh, cable are all they're not run through coax. It's all from a Wi-Fi signal. I mean, there's so much signal that's being put out there. So just finding that signal, like blocking that signal, is a huge thing, right? Because like, I said I wasn't going to speculate, um, but I'm just gonna, and I've got this on pretty good authority, although I cannot confirm it. This guy used to actually work for Alphabet before he started working with me. Like the Google Earth vehicles that drive around, the Google Maps vehicles that drive around, they're not just taking pictures. They're also like picking up like Wi-Fi's that are in the area and stuff like
Like
I've
that.
a
heard of
Wi-Fi
this.
sniffer?
So again.
Like a Wi-Fi sniffer?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no,
So just do digital mapping at that point.
yeah,
So
What were you saying, man?
where the router signals are, like, so they know where all the routers are. Like, okay, that's for this house, that's for this house, that's for this house. I think what he's talking about.
It's an
yeah,
IMEI.
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
You got on your phone, regardless of what type, it has a couple of different. They call them protocols. It's just a numeric system that's used to identify the device that's embedded into the processor of the phone, like whatever the computer is, and it's a unique ID, and that is what is, depending on the phone, there's different data that's sent in packets continuously, and so like that is the like the passive transmission when you're not even using the phone, when it's pinging towers. it's sending a packet with fixed data, and what it usually consists of in the basic form that's really old would be like your IMEI number, your GPS that's printed out, your location that's printed out as a data line, and then like some other sensor data, and it's all going to get sent out as just like a text string that's very low bit, and it just pings out regularly, and then it hits the towers, and then the towers, they can cross-reference the point, because if you it's just like interpolation, or like if you're doing like it's very similar to like mapping, like map reading, when you do like 2 points to a known point, two known points to find your location. It's the same thing. So when your signal goes out, it's going out, omnidirectionally, right? And then the towers, how they reference that, cross references your position as like a reverse check. So they get the GPS and the reverse check.
When I heard about what he was talking about, I heard it was to track a laptop, because the laptop don't have cell phone signal, but if they know where all the routers are, they can tell where the laptop is.
I'm sure, probably.
That would make sense, because rural areas don't seem to have Google Maps, and most people don't have internet connection out there. So
no, my house don't even show up yet on Google Maps. So it's been at least like 4 years since the satellite flew over my location.
Yeah, so some employees like, fuck that, I just want to go home.
Okay. Yes. So with that, I'm glad y'all mentioned the Google Earth thing, right? So that they're in Google does this for their Google for Google Maps and Google Imagery, and and I can't say how NGA or NRO does their stuff. However, if I was approaching this problem set from an unbiased standpoint and just trying to find the best way to solve a problem, I'm going to want to fly and collect on areas that have more people in there, right? I mean, why are you going to cast a 30-foot by 30-foot net in a pond that has 8 fish in it, when you can go 2 ponds over and use that same net that stocked with catfish, right? If you want to catch, so you're going to go to that lesser stock pond more often, right? So going to that, so like on one of the open source imagery platforms, you can actually see my old neighbor washing his car, right? I mean, it's overhead, right? I mean, but the thing is, like, that may be just a small data point, right? Like, okay, the guy washes his car. Well, okay, that means nothing, right? But if you go back at, but knowing the guy, right? I know he doesn't. He works 4/10s, right? So he's off every Friday. Okay, I know he washes his car on Fridays. I know that picture was taken on a Friday because he's too busy with doing other stuff during the weekend. So if you could just take that data point, right? Hey, that guy is at home on Friday, right? So going back to social engineering and I guess behavior modification, stuff like that. If say Google wanted to knock on his door and say and actually want to talk to somebody about the advantages of Google Fiber and why you should use us, well, they can from that one data point, and then they can bounce it off other Fridays that whatever set their open source imagery flew over that location. Hey, is that car there? Right. So
what you're saying is that everything is connected, and so you can draw logical capture nets or logic. You can play algebra with variables of things that are known and discover things that are generally considered unknown, but you can get a pretty positive picture that's robust, that's like full of all kinds of information that can be used for any purpose.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and from the targeting side, like in Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, and Dugan, I know you probably heard this. That it's called pattern of life, right? You're trying to develop that, even if, hey, I know this guy's off on Fridays, like it's stuff like that. A couple other things. So I mentioned Gorgon Stare. So really cool thing. There's an article by NPR, and if one of y'all want to type this out in the notes, so everyone can read about this,
This
right?
is
So,
NPR News.
oh yeah, but it's called colorimetric analysis. Okay, so so if you just Google or Bing or whatever, it doesn't matter. Colorimetric analysis is COLORIMETRIC analysis. NPR, March 2nd, 2011. Right. So
Hey, can you re-say that again? How do you spell that? I want to put that in. Someone put that in the chats.
yeah, sure. Charlie Oscar Lima Oscar Romeo India Mike Echo Tango Romeo India Charlie.
But anyway, guys, I gotta get rolling. It was fun chatting with you, though.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Hey, CRS, I'm a big fan. I watch all your uploads. I'm a big fan.
Well, you guys have a good night.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Later.
Yes, I think everyone kind of understands the amount of information that's available through a cell phone, right? But it's the other stuff that concerns me, and by the other stuff I mean stuff that is available through overhead, right? With the wide proliferation of cheap UAVs, right? I mean, look how many police forces have UAVs now. I mean, that's your local police. Like, Atlanta PD has a UAV, right? Like that's kind of scary, right? I don't like that. That's kind of
local police have UAVs.
Facial recognition. Amazon sells them facial recognition. Right?
Hey, Dugan, I got a question. What do you think about lead-based paint house? You think that would deflect any type of signals or frequencies?
I'm sure it would for like small milliamp signals. Probably.
So that's probably not why they banned it, though. It's probably because it was unhealthy as shit.
Yeah, it's probably not for signal, but it's not going to block a cell phone. Now, lead. If you have lead, if you catch the lead box, that will fucking block. That will block some fucking cell phone signals right there.
A solid lead box?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That'll block fucking everything.
Huh.
So one thing I'll say is having knowledge of the real estate world. I'd say close to 80% of the country have laws pertaining to lead paint disclosures, and people, to avoid that, have to disclose it and or mitigate it. And it's kind of like asbestos, right? Like you have to disclose it, and the buyer has to agree that I know I'm coming into a poisonous home, or they have to mitigate it. And a lot of people have some conspiracies around that it's not just for our health.
Really?
Yeah, that it may be for like what you were mentioning, or like they use GPR type things to ground penetrating radar to look for shit that's buried. Well, apparently there's things like a van that exists that could park outside of your home and take internal pictures of the structure, figure out if you have a room with vast amounts of metals, firearms, ammunition, things like that. And I'm saying apparently that exists.
Hey, that's probably why everybody's dying off from cancer. Is all these friggin' radio signals being punched around everywhere. It's a slow kill for sure.
Dude, we're fucking eating 5G for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day.
What can we do to kind of remedy that for health?
Exercise.
Exercise
is the number one thing. Exercise and water.
You got to sweat. Most people don't sweat nowadays.
Yeah.
True that. Sorry, I kind of cut you off, Joshy. Were you? Did you have something else?
Yeah, just a couple more things. There's and I remember being a lot. This is on sound like a pillow biting liberal here, but the PBS Nova from 2003 called "Spies That Fly" is actually a great documentary. It was put out right when Global Hawk was coming online. Global Hawk's kind of the ultra long endurance UAV that that the military fields the military uses. And it was just now coming online. It was beginning to come online, and may not even come online yet. But that documentary is very good. It's on PBS. I haven't looked for it online to see if it's available to stream or anything, but I'm assuming it is because it's public broadcasting, right? And another thing, really cool. I mean, I guess it depends on the way you look at it. So it's this system called SIBRS, and it's space-based infrared system, right? SBIRS. So it's basically a bunch of satellites. Some are in low Earth orbit, some are in high Earth orbit, some are in a helical orbit, which means sometimes which means it's not staying at the same altitude the whole time above the Earth. So those satellites are used, are big for like missile launch detection and stuff like that. But going in from what's that sensing is it's sensing like fires, it's sensing stuff like that. So with me talking about the Gorgon stare, right, and the thing that can record 1.8 million terabytes of data a day, a video a day. The colorimetric analysis stuff, SIVERS, and a lot of that stuff. That's information that you don't have to like. That's not information that you have to like willingly surrender, right? You want to. You forgot to order an anniversary gift, and you have to order that widget on Amazon to make your wife happy, right? Or you're not going to be able to do it, right? Because COVID killed all the small businesses. You know, the you know you're voluntarily surrendering that data for that, but you're not. You don't have to surrender your overhead data. There's and there's only so much that can be done with overhead collection. And that's something where you can actually own your domain, and you don't have, and whether it's a UAV, a satellite, an airplane, it doesn't matter. Like that that's your information.
Hey,
So
Josh, I have a
yeah,
question, sir. Are
yes,
are you still in?
yes,
Oh, you don't have to tell me what. Are you allowed to say what service, or are you in the military or just government agency?
yes.
Okay.
You're both.
What are the mindset of people who actually want to have a resemblance of what America used to be that are in that agency?
Yes, so it's kind of weird, right? I mean, because especially where I work, it's not there's very little collection on individuals. It's collection on other stuff,
Do
right?
they have concern that America's going to shit and they could reverse it with their skill, or are they just going along and getting a paycheck?
I would say it's about half and half. I mean, it's there's a lot of people, that are concerned. The problem that we have right now is, I'd almost say, and this is just my opinion. I would almost say the climate that is within um, the IC right now makes it where and I don't just mean conservative or liberal, and I hate like that paradigm when it comes to politics. I mean like people who actually want to see our nation succeed and not just be a tool for the bankers or whatever, right? I mean actually people who want to see our nation be what we were 225 years ago, right?
Well, right
Those
now
ideas.
they're not looking like good guys.
Well, so the thing is, and myself and people that think like me, we have to keep it really hush hush. I mean, it's not something where I'm like walking into the office wearing a lanyard with the Gadsden flag, come and take it shit on there. I'm being very low key.
No, we get it,
Yeah,
Josh.
yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
But that being said, I mean, there's like, say for example, a couple months ago, there was a guy and he swung by my office and he was talking and you usually see him in passing and say what's up, but there was like I think it was around Thanksgiving, so there was like no one in the office, right? And so hey, he sees another living individual, so on this floor, let's talk. You're right, one of those things. So we're talking, and the guy mentions that he's getting into some drilling, and starts about how he thought this press and all this other stuff. And then I just looked down like, did you get 80%? And then like, there's a couple other people there, right?
Okay, well, you need to start. Hopefully, you're influencing bigger scales because if you're doing this low key thing, I mean, you're on here talking to all of us. So, I mean, you're broadcasting to the whole world anyway. So, I mean, if you're worried about breaking some OPSEC, you're here talking to us crackers.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, and I told Dark this on the phone, like, I wouldn't mind a
Look at
career
that.
change. I just
Big
want
bang
to
bad.
study career change. Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Josh. My bad. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind a career change. I would just like for it to be on
Yeah,
my terms.
you're not going to be able to change it from within, okay? They're just going to chew you up and spit you out. You're an expendable asset. Your best bet is to learn that skill, have a network with people that you piece out, and, go from there. But I don't think you're going to...
Okay, well, you say that, but here's the thing, right? I mean, like, how is anyone like who's going to like throw the flag saying, "Hey, this is fucked up. We shouldn't be collecting on Americans." That person has it may be Abu Akbar or some shit like that, but they have a 202 area code. Therefore, we have to treat them as an American, right? Like that's the right thing to do. That's what intelligence oversight's there for. Like so the so I mean I there's gonna there if everyone like me and me walked out tomorrow, you're just abandoning like any semblance of influence that you have with it. I mean, I know that we kind of hint around how there's some entities out there who like to undermine and possibly kind of subvert kind of larger things, right? Where like if if the Algonquins, as Dugan so eloquently put it, if they weren't in government, would they have any influence? Right?
Yeah.
If people who actually give a shit about freedom and want to see this country be what it can be, right, and fulfill it and go back and try and fulfill its full potential. If people like us walk out, then you're left with the people who want to get that fucking GS-15 job and then get that SES job, and they don't give a shit who they have to step on to make it happen.
That's true. That's true. I want to. We're really long here. How are you doing, Josh? Do you have like one more topic in you, or do you need to take?
I can go as long as y'all need to. Yeah.
I can't, unfortunately, but
Don't be a pussy.
I got a topic.
Can we switch one more, or what?
You do one more topic.
Is that vest getting a little too heavy?
I do have one question that was sent to me by someone that's important from our community. Their question is they're very concerned about the collection of their data, and they are curious if these 3 steps are enough to free themselves. Number 1, de-Googling their phone. Number 2, deleting all social media and using Proton Mail.
I would say Proton Mail is not. There's no safe mail. So there's nothing. If you transmit over an ISP, it's vulnerable. Period.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's encrypted. It doesn't matter. Maybe now you will minimize the pool of people who can access it But in terms of like the greater picture of what's going on here, like how this whole thing got out of control, the people responsible for that, you're not going to escape. If you're transmitting on an ISP, they have access through ISP.
Now, if you have a VPN and
It
then
doesn't matter.
you download Tor,
If it's on the net, it can be watched, man. That's the way I look at it. It's never ultimately secure.
You want to be secret? You want to be secret? Write a fucking note on your hand and then hold that shit at an angle for the other person to read it, because that's the only thing that.
Yeah.
And then wash that thing off with some spit afterwards, because
eat
if it's
that.
hanging on by your side, somebody could check it with a traffic camera or something.
Dude, that makes sense, because all these content creators that have been flushed out from Patreon, YouTube, Instagram, all that, it's because they allowed them to get on there, and then they figured out who's who, and then they're slowly just kicking them off because they got algorithm and network of who's who. So that's all it is just a flushing of people.
The best thing that you could do to like if you want to and it's not even about like hiding your shit so that you can like be nefarious or anything like that. It's just about being in a position where you're changing your lifestyle habits to be, it's like if somebody was coming by with a pair of binoculars and looking in your window trying to watch you undress. Even if you close your shades, like you're going to be creeped out because you're going to know that somebody's out there with binos trying to scope you. But the way that you
Get a
get
helicopter.
Yeah. So the way you do it is make a giant cardboard cutout with a giant dick and put it in the window. No. So the way that you cut loose is it's purely habitual. It has to be habitual. Now, whether that's like you've got a brother or something that you can trade cell phones and then you like strap them to the tops of your cars or something and then go like drive them around and crazy. I mean, I don't know. It could be something like that, but you get by just not carrying the phone, right? So just not carrying the phone, you break the cycle of building up your pattern where your pattern's recorded. So like if you make it a disciplined habit to like, I get home, I put my phone in a box or whatever, and it's done. And then if I need to go text somebody or check to see if I got any special text messages or whatever, then you can go like, do it decisively as like a decision instead of just being like, fucking addicted to dope. And then by doing that, it starts to, like break away the pattern of like, I carry a tracking device on me all the time. And that's the biggest thing, because you can, even if you keep a completely stock, brand new iPhone with all the gizmos on it, is if you're not carrying it all the time, you're going to break periods of the pattern.
You know what you could also do to that, Duke, is go outside and garden and leave your phone in the house and have random patterns of fencing an area or getting some new animals and just doing something totally different and throw them off track.
The chains of habit. They are far too light to be felt until they are far too heavy to be broken. Man,
I'm telling you, just having grass and planting a tree was empowering, dude. Like that's something everybody can do. And I kick myself. I could have done this years ago, and I'd have had fruit already. You know,
it's never too late. And the just breaking a pattern has huge implications, especially if you imagine if everybody in the United States did that. Like, what if it was a matter of pride, where it was like Americans got fed up with being tracked, and it was a standard, it was like an American thing to like, I put my fucking bug in the box, or whatever, so I can be with my family, because I don't want fucking spooks, spending my best moments of my life that I spend with my family, spending it with the spooks, like they can fucking stay in the box where they belong. And then I'm going to, live my couple of hours here in peace alone with my family.
Dude, we could start by 112 or 110 people doing it with blue chem lights.
Yeah. Now I did want to, if we could, the thing that I wanted to bring up to Josh particularly is if you're familiar with the DEA report from 1990 and 2000. You heard of that, Josh?
I have not. Is that about MENA or Afghanistan? Is what I'm guessing. Just off
No,
the
it's
top of my head.
the stateside with it's a DEA. So it's a DEA report. I actually sent Dark. Did you have that PDF?
I do, yeah. Yet I did not review it. I had only done some
You got
mainstream.
Now,
You
you have
haven't read it, dude? You got to, man.
I have two other people that have prepped for a live stream, yet I didn't.
Pacone, did I send you that DEA PDF?
Yeah, I read it.
Can you click on? Could you do you have that link, Andy? Could you copy that link and put it in the chat?
Yeah, I could probably do it through YouTube, maybe. Let me see if I can do that.
All right, thanks. I'll give a synopsis. So basically, this is like a huge thing that really got stomped under the rug, and I think it's really interesting because of how powerful it is and how much it got covered up. It is very suspicious. Like it's something that like all Americans should be aware of and be bring back up because it doesn't really have an expiration date. It doesn't really like get stale. So in that from I think it's from, if I remember right, it's 1999 and 2000. So what happened was they had, like and this is pre 9/11 era, right? So we're not like fucking zombified like paranoid here yet, but the DEA had a bunch of not like black sites, but like they had like unregistered houses that they're running operations out of and shit, and like offices for field employees that they started to like, I guess some guys got together and they were like, whoa, did you see this chick? And then they put two and two together. So they figured out that like Israelis were sending like 20-year-old girls and guys under the cover of like Israeli art students. And so what they were doing, how it looked, they would go to they had some kind of shitty Chinese like printed art, like shitty flea market art in a picture frame, and they had girls in like short booty shorts and like I guess they're supposed to be like really attractive women. So it's almost like it gives the impression of like a honeypot type operation. But what they were doing was taking groups of these people. They were like they were going to DEA field offices. Now this came through the DEA. Later, it ended up expanding. So they were going to DEA offices. I think they went to like, do you remember how many states it was, Pacone? It was a shitload of states. It's like 14 states at least.
It was over a dozen states.
Well, we can assume that it's probably progressed a whole lot more since then.
Utah, it was all over the place.
It's everywhere. So they in a period it was like a 1-year concentrated period prior to 9/11 with like a 6-month overlap where there was no activity. It just stopped. And then 9/11 happened. They were sending Israeli art students to make contact with like DEA locations, both on the books, but also classified shit. Like, I mean, not classified, but like restricted shit that are like operational, like houses that are converted to fucking like field offices where they're running like undercover agents and shit up. And they were showing up to the residents. Not only were they showing up to the residents, some of the places that they went, they got fucking apprehended because they showed up. And like, they were like, this is like nobody should be here. And these are fucking like foreigners. So they fucking like apprehended, like questioned them and like searched their pockets and shit. They found like marijuana roaches in there. So they had like nothing in their pockets, but like pocket lint and some like dope roaches and like that, and like a pair of keys or something. And that's it. And then they got this Chinese artwork. They got dropped off. All of these people, once they identified them and shit, and their IDs, some of their IDs are in the DEA report, which is we're looking forward to post in the comments. But so this happened like widespread, hundreds and hundreds of contacts. Where it got really serious was the DEA. Once they started comparing notes and figuring out this is nationwide, they started to get Israeli art students going to like the personal homes of DEA officers. And then and that's when they started